The only thing I really remember is like throwing my fingers across the keyboard and then making it sound coherent enough. But essentially, I said day one of the tournament, and people could even go back to the VOD of this. I said that if I got to the final, I would try to split. Because, you know, MCC is fine as is, and it's a very fun event. But once I started getting like super into it, it's made them more fun. Because like I like to actually dress up in person for a lot of them too now. Like it takes this like adaptability and genuine like attitude and enjoyment really like not only succeed but sustain it. What will work, what won't work, what will succeed, what won't succeed.
What is Minecraft Championships, the TV series?
So it kind of came about because people still do get mine and Rand's voice confused, and I don't.
Alright lads, welcome back to InsideMC, the part of the podcast where I sit down with an amazing guest every single week. And this week, I'm joined by someone very, very cool, being Sneegsnag.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. I don't know if I'd say very cool, but I do appreciate that.
Stupendously cool, then. We'll over-exaggerate it a little bit more. Is that the problem? I didn't over-exaggerate it enough.
Sure, yeah.
Well, welcome in. Can I call you Sneeg, or is that like a certain nickname that you have?
Yes, Sneeg is the what people usually end up going by.
Okay.
I remember making the username and wanting to be called Snag because I thought it was cool because I was like 12, I guess, at the time. But now everybody just calls me Sneeg. I'm kind of just like, okay, well, that's fine. Whatever. Doesn't matter to me anymore.
If for some bizarre reason your username was the other way around, do you think people would still call you Sneeg, or would they call you Snag?
You know, that's a good question. I never really thought about it like that.
Is it? Because, like, for instance, but I mean, I don't think so, though, because my name's Insane Orbits, and people don't call me Insane, they call me Orbits, and it comes second. I think it's just what people prefer, like what rolls easier off the tongue, and Sneeg just sounds nicer than
exactly.
Snag. So, but then put together, it just becomes a bit of a long sentence. Anyway, that's your name. That's cool to learn. Welcome on today. I always like to give the intro before we get into talking more about you, for you to let us know who you are. So who are you? What do you do? If you have a fun fact about yourself or in general, it's completely up to you.
My name is Sneeg. I'm a variety streamer. I've been doing it since early 2019. So I guess actually my like full-time like anniversary date is actually now. It's like sometime this week. It's early September is when I like went actual full-time in 2019. But besides the point, happy 5 years to me, I guess. But yeah, I'm a variety streamer. I'm 28 this month, I guess, if anybody cares. But I am from St. Louis. I moved to Arkansas, Northwest Arkansas recently because my wife's family lives here, and we just had our daughter about a year ago, and our birthday's coming up. So she's about to be 1. And so I guess that's a really fun fact, is that I have a daughter, and we share a birthday, which is very, very cool for me. And then I have a criminology degree. So I studied criminal justice in the United States. I have a bachelor's in it. I actually dropped out of my master's program to stream, which is very silly. But yeah, they basically were trying to get me to write essays and dissertations and stuff. And I was like, nah, I'm going to play Minecraft. So that was a pretty interesting decision. It was a pretty easy one to make. But yeah, it's been 5 years. So like, you know, I guess it's worked out so far. We'll see.
So when did you drop out of? When did you leave studying criminology? What year was that?
So the timeline of, I guess, my career is. It was like going into 2019, I basically did like a New Year's resolution, you know, the cringy kind of like, I'm going to do something different this year. But I decided that I wanted to really commit to content because I had always like kind of gone in and out of it. I had experimented with YouTube, especially for like, I mean, I don't even know how long, you know, easily 10 something years at that point. I was a little kid just being silly, having fun, and it just wouldn't work out. And I was always bummed, and I would get demotivated, and then I would stop. So it's like, I would always, you know, toy with it and fight with it, and I was kind of just like, you know, whatever at some point in my life. And then in the middle of college, Twitch kind of became a big deal. I wouldn't say in 2019, like maybe a couple years before, like Twitch became more of a thing, like more like way better known, way more validated, started gaining traction. So my really good friends suggested that I start to stream because because he knew that I liked to experiment with this stuff, and was like, he was just like, you never actually commit. Like he was like, I think that's your biggest problem, is you don't actually commit to any of this. So I basically used like the New Year's as like an excuse to essentially commit, which I guess was enough motivation for me. I started streaming, and I guess I just got like a couple of opportunities, one after the other. And by the time I graduated college, my undergrad and got my bachelor's degree, it was already like a well-established thing. Like I'd already been succeeding in it. I was already making money off of it, but I'd already committed to my graduate program by the time it started working out. So I was, I was going to go to my master's program no matter what. And, being able to juggle it through that last semester of college, I was kind of like, I could probably do both. I can get away with this. Wouldn't be a problem, whatever. So I ended up like juggling it for a month or so in like early September around now to date the episode, I guess. But I ended up just I kept getting opportunities to continue to grow my career as a streamer. And then I kept getting assignments, as you do in school. So, and then this was a graduate program. So they're expecting like you to shit out a 7-page essay in 3 days time. And I'm like, I'm losing, not only am I like not motivated to get these assignments done, these assignments and the class times, like going to class, being there, studying, putting in the work is like taking away from actual opportunity for me to grow the career that I've wanted since I was like literally a kid. So it's a pretty easy, choice for me to just be like, I'm just going to try and see how this goes. So I can find the exact day, but it's usually around this time. It's sometime early September. Was like September 2019 was the month I actually committed to full-time content and like dropped out of my graduate program and like sent it. Because at that point I had moved out of my parents' house so I could stream and stuff undisturbed. And then I was essentially paying for anything I needed via the job. And then the classwork was taken away from my job, which was affecting not only like the thing I wanted to do the most, but also like the income at that point. And then, it was kind of like there's a choice that needs to be made because both of these things are hurting the other. And I need to choose which one is more important at the so. That's basically how it worked out. And I guess I cope with it in a good way because I have a degree already. So that's fun and easy for me to use as an excuse. And then you can always go back to school. You know what I mean? Like I could go back to that graduate program if I needed to. So I guess that's kind of like the justification I made at the time. And it still kind of holds up, I guess. I mean, at least for me. And, I'm still here.
It's slightly easier to pick up a studies than it is to pick back up a YouTube channel in a sense.
Well, yeah, and you don't I guess that's kind of the thing is you don't get to really choose like your content career sometimes, like not in the way that like you don't have any control over it. You don't really get to fully control the relevancy of it all. Like at the end of the day, it's in the hands of your audience and the general public, I guess, as well. So it's like, you don't necessarily get to fully control whether or not you're doing this in a successful and financially successful way. Like whether you enjoy it or not is completely different, but whether or not it's working in a way that you get to do just that is a totally different like concept and not your choice, like ultimately. So I picked the one that's like, this is working, I'm enjoying it, and it's not going to stay. And I can't necessarily just pick it back up like I can with school. So yeah, you're exactly right.
This is a bit of a stranger question, but I am curious. And if you don't answer it, that's fine as well. Did your partner, your now wife, did you meet them in like while studying, or did you meet them after you started taking on content full time?
I met her in college. So yeah, it was kind of the period between. So it wasn't while it was like extremely, it was like as it was growing. I started in like 2019, like early like January, and then things started working out really fast in terms of the streaming platform. And I think we met around April and started dating a month or so after that. So it's like, it was kind of already snowballing at that point, but not in any regard of like, I have to worry about whether or not she's here for the right reasons, et cetera, all that jazz. So she didn't even know what Twitch was when I met her and we went on our first date, which was really funny. It kind of worked out for me because it's like, I didn't have to worry about like, well, is she like a fan? Does she care about this stuff? Do I have to worry about like why she's here? Like I didn't have to worry about any of it. She had no clue. She didn't even know people did this as like a thing. But she didn't mind and she supports me doing it. And it's basically like the main source of income for my family. So I think it worked out.
The question was more so like as opposed to like morals, which is a good answer. So thank you. I was also more so just curious as to if you'd taken the content route, if you hadn't taken the content route, would your life still be similar? As in meeting your partner, but you met them as it was snowballing, so either path you would have taken, you would have still been the same. Yeah,
probably. I think had I committed to like a more of an academic route, we were together, at that point to begin with. So I think like, if technically everything still went the same same way I just did that instead of this immediately, like I think everything would have ended up the same.
Your YouTube channel, and I know obviously you took it on more seriously back in 2019, but you have been around for a while, at least your channel has, since it was created in 2010, April 2010, and your first upload was from 11 years ago, which is...
That's true.
Kind of crazy. It was UHC highlights, you did a little bit of variety in between that, like the tiniest bit of like Elden Ring, and then kind of on and off.
Tried to do a lot of like let's play stuff because that was like a huge thing back then. I remember when I first started, I would like render videos out overnight and upload them overnight, but I didn't know you could like not publicize something immediately. So I would just like have 6 videos upload overnight while I slept. They were just like publicized, like out there. And I just, it's so funny to me now, like just thinking about like how innocent that sort of like attitude for me was, because I was just so excited to do it. And how like funny that is, because that would be so stupid now. Like people would be so like, what is this guy doing? But you know, I was like literally, I don't even know, 11 years ago, I was, 14, 15. So, it's like just a silly little thing. I don't know. It makes me laugh.
It's the same thing I said about Ronaldo when Ronaldo made his new channel. I remember, like, I don't know if I tweeted it or like as a joke up in the Discord. It's like, this is the most unoptimized way of uploading. Like he made the channel and uploaded like 15 videos, and it was like, why?
Yep. It's just kind of like, it was part of how the climate worked back then. Like the YouTube was so new that like let's plays were like the huge thing, and people just wanted to like watch people play something and yap a ton. So it was like, that was basically what YouTubers, like big let's players, were doing back then. Like they were just uploading 8 parts a day of the same game, just like 20 minutes of this, and then I'll see you in the next one. Then they immediately hit record again, and it's like they just sat there for 3 hours, and then they just render it out and upload all of it in 8 segments. And it was like, that was basically what worked back then in a lot of ways. It was really strange. I mean, it's strange to think about now, because it's like people go months without uploading one thing, and then they upload one thing and it bangs like crazy, because that's just the effort and time they put in, and it shows in numbers and in passion by the audience and by the person. It's like, it's such a different climate now. It's wild to me.
I see a lot of the podcasts is kind of things that I sometimes think of on the spot, and I've never asked anyone this question before, but I'm going to ask it to you. If you were to make the content that you make today that does well, so let's specifically say I know this was 3 years ago, but the Honey I Shrunk the Slimecicle, but let's replace Slimecicle with someone who was big at the time, and then Origin SMP, like SMP content, all that kind of jazz. If you were to upload those same videos, let's say 7-8 years ago, and I don't know if it's something that you just might not be able to answer, do you think they would have done as well as they have today, based on like YouTube's climate and all that kind of jazz?
If they were uploaded like back then,
yeah,
maybe, because like that sort of video was based off of an SMP, and SMPs were pretty good back then, like Minecraft and I guess Hermitcraft, which is still going on, and then a few others. So it's like maybe, because like SMP stuff was still doing pretty okay back then. It's possible. I don't know if it would have done as well, just because like platform's not as big, like there wasn't as big of a passion around it. And I think that like that server was made during a certain like era of Minecraft, especially, where like the fans were super into it, and like, so everything about it, all the stuff about it, any content about it, people wanted everything to do with it, no matter what or who uploaded it. So I think it would have been okay. I don't think it would have stood as tall as that video in particular did, but also like the context of that video, like the glitch and like just the situation of that whole thing was such a weird like happenstance that I don't know. I don't know. I think it would have been okay.
But yeah. YouTube is such an interesting platform, because I mean, it's like you kind of mentioned earlier, you don't get to decide, or you don't always get to decide how well something does, because it's not you watching the video 100,000 times, it's people watching it 100,000 times. So videos can either do well or bad, but it just depends on when you upload it and how much effort you put into it, kind of thing. But
like, it's a bit harder for like my side, because my content's kind of built around me as a personality, not a subject at hand. So like I had an editing team one time, like a couple of years ago, that was, I was paying, and they were like, we'll give you 3 videos a week, except all of the videos they built, and these are all like, I unlisted all these videos because they bother me and they hurt like everything about the algorithm for me, because like I don't want them out there at this point. Yeah. But just the structuring of the videos that they made were basically like nothing to do with me. It was more about what I was up to, not like emphasis on me as a personality and me as a comedian and entertainer. It was they just didn't know how to market like my content, because I just don't think they ever dealt with like a creator whose personality was the forefront of the content, not just the game, because they dealt with a lot of like Call of Duty people and like battle royale creators. So it's like they were super used to having that like very blatant gameplay and like I guess like
as opposed to comedy kind of thing.
Right. Like way more about like what the person's doing, not just like what the person's saying and how like entertaining they're being. So it is a bit hard with YouTube, just because, you know, people don't really just like wander around the platform trying to look for somebody entertaining and new. Like at least just that. Like they'll find that through like looking in other regards or like in other avenues. They'll find some random video essay and they'll think that guy's entertaining based off of the topic that they're talking about. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's hard to build a channel based off of just personality, because people don't typically just look for that when they're on YouTube.
I have a lot of respect for a lot of different creators and what they do, the people who put effort into it, the people who do content. But I guess based on the podcast being kind of like, and not kind of, it is pretty much personality. Obviously it comes down to who I'm bringing on, but I have a lot of people who come back and listen to every guest no matter who it is, because it's me doing it. So I have a lot of respect for like yourself, who has grown based on just having a good personality. And of course your streams, you have these little like funny bits at the start of streams. Like
of course.
I one that's in my head from quite recently was the multiple of you. Something happens and then I think you come in like I can't remember it specifically, so I'm not going to say the wrong thing here, but like it's that, but that's also cool editing skills, but also a lot with personality, because you're doing something funny to keep the viewers entertained through the intro kind of thing. So
yeah, there was a small time where I was just like trying to think of really stupid jokes, one-off jokes, where I would just like basically make the intro of my stream something dumb. Like, there was a few where I would mask half of the room and like film myself arguing with myself. I did it 2 or 3 times in a different way. So it depends on which one you're talking about. But yeah, there was one where there was like 5 of me, and then there was one where it was just 1 of me.
It was the 5 of you one, I think.
Yeah, I really like that one.
Did you punch yourself in the face in that one? Like, for some reason, I think you did, but I don't. Like,
no,
you don't.
No,
okay,
I dropped a nuke.
Same thing, right?
Casually. So yeah, that's kind of fun. I don't do those like all the time. Not really now either, but like they're fun to do. I don't know, it's just kind of fun to like flex that little bit of editing prowess, but having to do that all the time would be very exhausting, because I found myself running out of ideas very fast. But you know, when I get a good one, every once in a while I'll do them now. So it's nice to like have that in my back pocket, so I can just like throw them out there every now and then and surprise my chat. And then at the same time, they're not sitting there expecting something crazy every single day. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But I mean, the more thing I was trying to get at was like, as much as editing, it's also personality to be funny, to keep people hooked. And that's why like I hold you in such a high kind of regard for that, because you have like, obviously you're good at the game as well. Like you've won Block Wars.
I'm okay.
Now. Yeah, okay. You're decent at the game, which helps. Also, like we said, personality is a big thing, and like because of the podcast, I just appreciate it more, I guess. So
I appreciate that, yeah.
You kind of touched on it at the start there, but more so for like a timestamp here. What specifically was it that you've always, because you said you've always wanted to do content creation. What exactly about it made you like be a dream kind of thing? I
think when I was younger, I've always really liked video games, and I like just playing video games. I feel like when I was younger, especially, you know, I grew up on just a teacher's salary, which is, you know, not great. So I didn't really have tons of stuff. And I think, you know, video games were kind of a form of escapism while I was younger, and helped me kind of like, you know, think less about a bit of reality. And then, not to be too bleak, but yeah, so I feel like, you know, it's always been kind of like video games and gaming and the culture around it, the ability to do so and be good at it has always been like kind of a thing in my life, and it has helped. Pretty positive it saved my life as a kid. And so, you know, when I was like 12 or 13 and I realized people were just like on YouTube, you know, basically doing what I like to do for fun and getting, you know, making a job out of it, I was like, that's awesome. I mean, like I wanted to do that. And you know, I've always when I'm comfortable and when I'm like confident, like I'm always an entertainer. You know, not all the time. I'm not that brave, but like in settings where I feel like comfortable and like people would appreciate it in some regard, like I like to entertain. And so, you know, the ability to do so while also doing something that like I hold so dear and have so much fun doing was like unquestionably like a great and perfect decision for me, like personally. So it kind of just is like it was just like a happy marriage between like the two things that I really like to do, which is just games, like gaming, and then entertaining people and making their day better.
You're a more, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong here. It feels like you're more like a natural entertainer. So if you're having a conversation, you're able to slide in a joke as opposed to forcing a joke in like a set moment. So
yeah, I'm definitely way better off the cuff. Actually, like planned humor like that sort of intimidates me a little bit because I feel like you have to really think ahead and get a feel for like the place you're doing it and the people that it's going to be there for. So you have to kind of like, I mean, you really have to get a feel for your environment in that regard. Being able to like read into the situation like that way ahead of time is like an art form I really respect. I don't feel like I can do it nearly as well as I can just like, once again, you know, talking and making jokes off the cuff. I feel like that's really my wheelhouse and where I'm most comfortable. So yeah, it's definitely way more of like a, you know, entertain here and there off instinct and off like wit rather than like, I'm going to go into this conversation. I've got 3 jokes planned that I'm going to bring up or something. You know what I mean? Yeah. That seems really weird to me, first of all. But yeah, and humor is very hard for me. It's just a lot of brain power that I don't feel like I have as well.
I work with like, so in quotation marks older. Basically, I'm 21. The oldest, the closest one is in age to me is 30 years of age. I work with 5 different people. So that kind of says like my humor is very different to mine. They don't really know too much about gaming, YouTube, any of that kind of jazz. And they don't know I do this either. But like in conversations, like I'm always making them laugh with their kind of humor because I've picked up from conversations how to make little jokes. And then as soon as it came to a time of like, oh, it's tell a joke day. Everyone has to tell a joke. I was like, I'm not doing it. I said what I said because I can't tell a joke on the spot. I know it's this weird like thing from management to try it because it's more than just the 6 of us. There's other people like chefs and stuff. But as for baristas, oh my god, I brought up. There's only 6 of us, so like they're trying to do this whole like bonding thing. There's these like little activities that they're doing of like find 5 truths and 1 lie from 6 different people. It's all a bit silly. But when they asked me to say a joke on the spot, I was like, I'm not doing it because I can't force a joke because I don't think you'll find it funny. But I can do like you said, little witty or little sarcastic remarks that will be funny in the moment. And if they're not funny in the conversation, you can just move on. It's so easy to just, oh, that didn't happen, let's carry on talking. So
exactly, yeah. And in some way you can just like move on from it pretty quick if you need to. Exactly.
You mentioned how when you were 12 or somewhat that age, came up to name Sneegsnag because you obviously you want to be called Snag. You thought it was quite cool. What if you remember? What's the deal with that?
It was the name. Sorry, at the time, Jagex. This was the name of like my second RuneScape account, which wasn't allowed at the time. So, but I made a RuneScape account, and then I made a second account, or like I don't even know why I made it. I was just like, I want to do other stuff, but whatever. I don't remember why I made the account to begin with, but I didn't know what to name it. And then I remember, the only thing I really remember is like throwing my fingers across the keyboard and then making it sound coherent enough. There's really nothing crazy behind the name of it or any sort of like special lore. It's literally just, I remember being like 12. I made a second account on a game I liked. And then I like slammed my fingers down on the keyboard and then I made it like sound like pronunciable. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So it wasn't just a random letter spam. There was actually somewhat a word out of it that you could claim as your own, essentially. Then what about,
it's worked out. It certainly worked out that way. It's like I don't have like, it's not like a common word or phrase or name or title people go by. It was just some word I made up, and now it's like I haven't had problems getting it. You know, especially early on, I had no problem getting it on most platforms, if not still.
It's also unironically extremely brandable.
Yeah, and funny enough. Yeah, it's funny how it worked out that way.
I don't know if you've ever... Do you scroll through Instagram sometimes? You ever doom scroll through Instagram Reels or no?
On Instagram
Reels?
This
is leading somewhere, that's why.
No.
There's this one account. They're not the name anymore. They're called Scumbag Dad Official. I don't know if you've ever
Oh
heard of him.
yeah, I know. I follow him on TikTok. I've seen kind of what he's been going through.
Yeah, so you'll know that he mentioned he had to change his name because he couldn't get a single sponsorship or anything because of the name Scumbag Dad.
Yeah, because his name was literally Scumbag Dad. And so it was like, while his like the branding of it is like funny because he was like, he would, take jabs and make satirical
Just
stuff
mock
about
people, yeah.
like virtue signaling TikTokers. But, some old dude in the marketing, company for whatever brand wants to sponsor him isn't going to see it that way. They're going to be like, why is his name Scumbag? They're going to be like, that's weird and also not marketable. So that's exactly right. Yeah.
So your name works out perfectly because it's not a real word. So how can it be, can't be offensive or anything? No one can get angry at you because it doesn't exist. It's just your fun little name.
Yeah, it's just a word I made up.
What about the skin then? What was the idea behind that?
Skin is Lancer from Deltarune, which the first chapter of Deltarune, if people don't know what that is, that's the person who made Undertale, Toby Fox, made Deltarune. It's like a prequel, sort of like secondary version of Undertale, kind of its own thing. That game came out basically when I started streaming. And so when I started, I was kind of like, I had like a sort of a branding of sorts. I was like an inverted creeper. So it was like I was a black textured creeper with green eyes instead of, green and black eyes. So, I was kind of that's kind of what my original stuff was and how my branding was. It was like this dark green, black sort of palette. And then when I decided to start streaming, I was kind of like, I feel like I should rebrand in some way because this is sort of like me jumping into this new sort of attempt and adventure of content. And clearly, what I had and what I was using and what I was using visually and stuff wasn't working in that regard. So I was like, I might as well try to do something a little different and try to change it a little bit. And then I really liked Undertale. I'm a huge Undertale fan. So when Deltarune came out, I didn't stream it, but I was playing it basically around this time when I kind of decided I wanted to really try streaming. So I was kind of like, Lancer's really funny. I like Lancer a lot. He's a really funny character in the game, not the show. But I was kind of like, I'll just use this sort of as a placeholder because I like character and its personality, and they're making jokes and not taking things too seriously and make funny faces, and I really like it resonated with me a little bit because that's kind of how I feel half the time, because like I don't take stuff serious a whole lot. I feel like I'm a very expressive person, so it was like I felt he resonated with me, so I was kind of like, I'll use this character for an hour or so, and then if something else comes up or I need to move it around, we'll do so. And then it kind of like intentionally and unintentionally has sort of pushed itself out into its own thing. So it's kind of not, it is basically like it's Lancer, but it's also not Lancer now. So it's kind of taken on its own form of like, inspired by it, like a lot of people tend to end up doing.
The thought and the memory is still there, but it's become your own thing, essentially.
Exactly, yeah. And then that's out of respect in the way that like I love the series that Toby Fox created, and it's an homage to the character and the work that he put in, and like the amazing game that he's still making that's almost soon to be fully out, I guess, which is exciting for me. But it's sort of an homage of like, I respect and love what you did enough to like make my character sort of loosely one of yours in a way that's like respectful enough to where I'm not totally like, I'm not just like branding myself as just that and like, selling myself as that and making money off of that. Like I've made it its own sort of thing that's like distinguishable out of respect in those two ways. I'm just curious here, with all the opportunities and stuff and how much you've grown throughout the years, have you ever interacted with like Toby Fox or anyone to do with any of this, or no? Like, have you ever had the opportunity? No, I've tried on Twitter 2 or 3 times if I remember right, but at this point I've kind of just like let it be. I don't want to bother him because I imagine there's a lot of pressure on him to make what he is making really good, considering the cultural impact Undertale has and still does. I can't imagine the pressure, so the last thing he needs is some random dude yelling about how he loved the character enough to like basically create his own personality within it as an extension. So it's like, I don't really want to bother him. I feel like he's got enough to do. If he noticed me or reached out at some point, that would be great. I mean, I'd be elated, but I'm not going to bother him a whole lot about it, nor do I want people to bother him about me, because that's not what it's about. I didn't do it for his attention. I did it because I loved the character and I loved the game that he made. So if he ends up seeing it and loves that I did that, like that's great. I would love that. But I didn't really do it to like get attention from him, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's fair. I was just more curious if you ever had the opportunity, like not even in a Sneegsnag sense, just say for like a pie or whatever. I don't really know how it all works. I've never been to one, so actually I tell a lie, I kind of went to one at TwitchCon EU, but that's still it's all cool.
I mean, I'm sure if he was somehow like in this vicinity of me in person, I would try to, I guess. I don't see why not, especially if it's in like a party setting like that, very natural, kind of just like
it doesn't hurt if you're not being
we're in the same place. I wouldn't like seek him out or anything like that. But these things happen, and you go to these conventions and shit, and people show up that you don't expect, and that's the same reason fans go to conventions, because it's like you might never see this person ever again. Might as well go and say hi to that creator that you really like.
Exactly. Speaking of conventions, actually, the day after this podcast comes out, you'll be playing in Twitch Rivals, MCC Twitch Rivals.
Yeah, very exciting.
That's on the 21st, right? Yeah, it is on. Okay, it's
I believe so. Yeah.
You probably know your team, just for the sake of not getting in trouble, and this always has to happen. Please do not leak it, just in case.
I do know my team.
I'm assuming it'll come out sometime this week. I want to make a prediction / hope. Okay.
Probably
won't happen. And once again, don't confirm it, just in case you get in trouble for this. I'm
hoping. I'm gonna stay silent. I'm gonna stay silent regardless, just so you know.
I'm hoping you're teamed with Shadoon because of the Twitch Rivals House of Nightmare thing. I've seen a lot of like things on Twitter about it. For in quotation marks lore purposes, it'd be pretty cool. But we'll see. I'll find out later this week, anyways, because I'm assuming teams will come out on Thursday and Friday. But that's my sort of prediction.
I understand that. I'm sure a lot of other people are kind of hoping for the same. That was a really cool moment. I mean, I guess I don't know about him, but for me personally, I think that was a really fun like way to cap off that event. I don't know how like the lead of the event or anybody calling the shots feels about it, but I loved it. I loved being able to like send it off like that. For people that don't know, I guess context is like a couple of months ago there was a Twitch Rivals event called House of Nightmares. I think Hannah Rose and Sylvie hosted it, and it was like 150 people, 5 days of games, and every game a certain amount of people got eliminated. But essentially, a couple of weird mishaps and hiccups and some drama, whatever, etc. Not going over all that, but I ended up getting into the final. I got into the top 4, and then I beat somebody to move into the final. So it was me and Shadoon, and it was literally the prize pool was essentially top 20 players got $1,000, and then second place got, God, I can't remember, I think 12,000, and then first place got 70,000. Like it was a disgustingly big disparage. Like a huge disparity in the prize. And this is 150 people. So if you did not get to day 5, if you went to day 4 and got eliminated, you didn't get money. Like you had to go through day 4 and go into day 5 to even get anything out of it, which was insane to me. Like it was a crazy, I still don't know why they decided it that way. Even spoiler, even though I won and like ended up with the most money somebody could have gotten, like I still would have gladly preferred they had split it way further down, because it just feels weird. It's a really weird thing to do that, and it makes people but like feel like they wasted 4 days of their week of streaming. And some of this is, for me especially, and others, it's their job. And people are very weird about events, so like viewers are very hit or miss with events. They might not tune in to an event, especially a 4-day event, because they're like, I don't know what's happening on day 3. I just got here, I'm not going to watch this. So it's like you kind of don't incentivize most of the people a part of it, and it's really discouraging for a lot of the players when like they don't get anything out of it. Essentially, it was me and Shadoon in the final, and then it was literally Connect 4. There was a bit more to it. It was more like you still had to time things right. There's a bit of mechanics to it. You had to fight for who got first place, like first roll, because like that's always very important. But essentially, I said day 1 of the tournament, and people could even go back to the VOD of this. I said that if I got to the final, I would try to split. And even then, like in the middle of that event, I started not at first, but I started throwing to basically emphasize that this is what I wanted. Like, and most of the conversation while I was playing against Shadoon was talking about splitting it, and it started causing this like stir of like all these people loving the idea and thinking of how cool it was. So basically, we ended up splitting first and second place. We filibustered the final essentially, and And this is after 5-day event. People are like sitting there wanting a winner, wanting somebody to get all that money. And then I essentially, with Shadoon, we're both like, we're not going to do this. Like, we're not playing the game, actually. We're going to stop playing the game. And it was like, we are both comfortable with taking the amount that first and second place got and splitting it down the middle, because we had both worked so hard and competed so well to get to that point. I was exhausted. It was like that day alone was super long because of other problems. And it was just a really long event. It was a long week. And I had already gotten like $12,000 was already in. It's an insane amount of money. And then I had the opportunity to basically tell the guy with me that's like, what if we just both got more guaranteed? And then we don't have to make this like weird. We can make this fun for both of us, and we can both get a significant amount of money that we're not going to think twice about. If I wasn't going to sit there and go, well, I could have gotten more. No, I already got more. I already got way beyond the amount that I thought I would go, and like was more than happy to split it with somebody who I 100% respect. Like, Dune's a really hard worker and he's a really tough player, and like to be able to even compete with him in that regard, in that moment, was like already really cool. So the least I could have done in that moment was like go out in my own way, in my own special way that I deemed fit, and show respect to the person I was doing it with and make both of our lives better in terms of like, that money, I guess.
I won't go into like too much depth also. I just want to add a bit of like missing parts that as a listener would like to clarify. Oh no, you've done great. I guess for like from a listener's perspective, from actively listening to you talk. So when we talk about when Sneak talked about the final day being really long, there's a few things. To guarantee, it was 1,000, right? To guarantee £1,000, there were different teams selected, but only not all of the teams made it through. So it was literally you got put into different teams by team captains. But it was only an individual. Yeah, and you made, who was it? No, it was Akko who made like a really, really good team, I think. Of just like, it was everyone who made it through.
The last event on day 4 was basically a race. There was like parkour and obstacles and like,
but it wasn't first team through. You kind of just made the team to help people.
So
which is strange.
I can't remember. It was like 4 or 5 teams, and then we were captains in like a snake picking order, and only 20 people went through. It wasn't your team made it through. It was only 20 people, exactly. So it was like, I remember Icicle was on my team, and Icicle missed making it by like actual inches. Like, he was at the door about to make it through when the 20th person made it through. So exactly that. Like, it was the last event on day 4 was like, you basically worked together, but also there was no guarantee that you guys even made it through together.
It gets stranger.
Very dramatic. It's very dramatic.
It goes from this really dramatic, like, oh my god, to a weird kind of camp the portal while someone holds a key, tried to take it off them last second and go through. And that was the difference between £1,000 and dollars. And what was the original second prize?
I think it was 12,000.
Oh, it was always
second
12,000.
prize.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then basically the
last game was so weird.
Game.
Yeah. Oh, second. Sorry.
Yeah.
It was so strange.
So like the 20-person game that decided the top 2 was like essentially an escape room, like find the key and get out, except the steps, it was literally 2 steps, which was very strange to me. They made it sound like it was going to be this like process where like everybody kind of had to try to do it themselves and then try to get away with being first and run, except it was like literally 2 steps. And then there was only 1 key at a time, and you could take the key from somebody. So essentially what ended up happening was like one person just did all the work, and then the whole way down to the doorway, people just fought for the key, and then somebody got away with it last second. The reason day 5 took so long was like there was a prompt on the screen for everybody where it was like there was a red and a blue door, and then also only 1 key was able to work at a time. Like, you couldn't find the blue key while the red key was still being looked for. Somebody had to get through the door before the second key was able to be found. And essentially, like, somebody found, I can't remember which key it was, but I'll just say it's the red key for this instance.
I think it was the red key, yeah.
Somebody found the red key, and then Shadoon placed himself really well to like take the key and drop down and get in the doorway because you had a bit of an invincibility when you first grabbed the key out of somebody's hands. So he took those like couple of frames of invincibility, like dropped down and made it through without anybody grabbing it from him. So he made it through fair and square. Like, he made it through, and then prompt on everybody's screen basically said, because originally it was like red door available, blue door available. And then when he went through the red door, it said the blue door closed and that it was unavailable. It said blue door unavailable, red door open or something like that. I don't remember the exact wording, but essentially it was the visual on everybody's screen was saying that like
wrong door was shut. Yeah,
the wrong door was shut, and to go through the red door, even though Boone had just gone through the red door. So like the second round started, like half of the lobby was camping each door because, you know, Sapnap, who made it through in that round, and a few others were logically being like, well, he went through that door. That doesn't make any sense. The other half were like, but the screen says to go through that the blue door is closed. So I'm going to wait at the red door because that's the one that's saying it's open. So like both sides had like had logical reasoning in a different way, whatever. So when he made it through, half of the people that were waiting on the other door were like, but wait a minute. Like it doesn't say to go through that door. In fact, I think it was Swirls took the key,
went to the wrong
and
door,
was at the, I guess what technically should have been the correct door based off of what the screen was saying. He was in there, like would have gone through totally everything, but didn't because it was the wrong door based off of the programming and like what should have been logical. Like, you know, he went through the red door. You're not supposed to go through the red door, but he was at the red door with the key, like would have gone through had it normally worked out that way. So, and then they basically fought across the courtyard to be the second person to go through. So like Sapnap got through, and then it was like half, you know, like I said, half the lobby was like, well, wait a minute, it was, you know, it was saying the wrong thing. This was already a big deal. Like on day 3, I won't even get into it, that people were kind of like
the game or whatever. They changed the game or something.
I don't even want to get into it. It's a whole thing that takes just as long to explain, and I'm kind of like, I'm over it. But it was yeah, so like, you know, at that point, half, like 10 of the 20 players were like, well, I was at the other door because it said to go to the other door. And they had already had this huge thing on day 3 where like misinformation within the game and on the screen and by the event holders led to people playing wrong. And so they had to redo a bunch of stuff on day 3. It's a whole different problem, not getting into it. But they essentially had to like do the same thing again because they had already done it once and they couldn't like back out of like, you know, they couldn't just be like, well, whoops, you know what I mean? Because they had already like resolved the issues from day 3 essentially by making everybody restart. I think they found a better way this time. They increased the prize pool. They gave the top 4 players more money. I don't remember. I think it was $4,000 or $3,000 instead of 1,000 for the 4th and 3rd player. And then they made what was essentially the final 2 people. They made the Connect 4 a 4-person bracket. And so like whoever went through the red door fought the other guy who went through the red door and vice versa. So, which I think was an okay way to do it because I didn't personally think Shadoon or Sapnap technically did anything wrong. They just went with the information they had. And I think it made sense with what they did. And so like it would have been wrong to like not let them go through, but it would have been wrong to not let us have another chance. So I think they did a really good job of like solving it. It took a while. It took like 90 minutes for them to find a solution. I might be even being generous. It might have been longer, but
you're being very generous. I said it afterwards. I respect the casters so much because they somehow kept it going. Like
I remember sitting there playing Valheim, just like waiting because I remember Sapnap going through and going, oh well, that's it then. And like I was like, well, you know, I got $1,000. That's fine. I'm pretty happy with how the tournament went. I had fun. And then I remember seeing like the Discord like flood with messages from people being like, yeah, there's something wrong. Like this was wrong. Like there was misinformation. And I was just like, I remember telling my chat, I was like, we're going to redo this. Like I can already feel it. The second it happened, I was like, this is restarting. And so I'm going to sit here. I'm just going to play a game and we're just going to see what happens. So I think they made the decent call and the right call. I do feel like I imagine I could feel a little screwed if I was the first 2, but also like they still had the chance that they got originally. They just had to do it twice, I guess. So I ended up fighting against Sapnap in round 1 of the Connect 4 and beating him, and then going to Shadoon and, you know, everything I said earlier happened. Yeah, the Hunger Games moment, really, essentially. So
it's really emotional, actually. If MCYT highlights was around by then, they would have feasted on that moment.
No, dude, it was super cool. I mean, it was such a fun thing. I remember just like collapsing after I ended stream and everything was like confirmed. Like my family was waiting downstairs, like ready to go celebrate. And I had just like emotionally, because I remember being extremely calm in the moment because nothing was for sure. There was so much going on and like there was so much uncertainty that I was like, I don't even know if this is happening. Like I'm not going to get my hopes up. There's a lot of bumps in the road for this event. which overall I thought was a really fun event. I think there's a lot of custom made stuff, and there's a lot of like clear love by the developers and stuff to make it fun. So I ended up really being appreciative of the event itself and like what the effort they put in. So there was a lot of bumps because it's hard to plan for such a long event. Like 5 days of making sure everything works right sounds crazy to me. Like I can't even figure out what I'm eating in one day, let alone plan an event that works flawlessly for 5. So it's like, I imagine it was a lot of like uncertainty and inability to figure out, you know, worst of the worst and what could go wrong, etc. So, but because of that, I didn't really like take it too for sure at the moment. And I remember just like ending stream and being done with it and realizing I had just like split, ended up being $40,000. You know, both of us got $40,000, which was crazy. I mean, it's a life-changing amount of money. Like I paid off my car, you know what I mean? So it's like,
I mean, 1,000 to me is like, if I made the top 20, I would have been
the 1,000. Yeah. Like the 1,000 is significant. Like I was already excited about the 1,000, like let alone, you know, making so much more and doing it in such a beautiful and like in such a way that like I was very proud of it. I was very proud of ending it off like that because it felt like me. It didn't feel like, well, I have to compete and I have to be the winner or the loser. It felt like me going out on my terms and in a way that like I was proud of, that I thought was more impactful for not only me but Shadoon and also everybody watching, because there was so much like I said, there was so much like hiccups and drama and like a lot of just like controversy surrounding the event because of a lot of stuff that went wrong, and it felt kind of right to like turn it on its head a little bit. Yeah, like turn it on its head a little bit like that. So yeah, I was super proud of that moment. I still am. It's still a really like huge highlight for my streaming career, I guess.
To put it into like some kind of perspective, I didn't even have to rewatch that back to remember it, and that was a few months back, and I've done so many podcasts in between, and that shows how much of like good memory it was.
Like it's so vivid to me still, like till this day. Like I still remember just like physically collapsing in my chair after everything like turned off, because I just, all of the pressure and weight and like the uncertainty like flew off the second I like stopped and realized that I had just like, I did exactly that. Like I held a huge event hostage and basically made them split the money further down like I thought was right. I obviously couldn't make them do way more. I think it would have been great for us to be like, give way more people that. I think that would have caused a much bigger mess that I don't think would have, you know, gone the same way. I don't think they would have agreed. But I got to do that in a way that like I was proud of, that like made me happy, putting money in my pocket that I didn't expect, putting money in someone else's pocket that I don't think they were expecting. And you know, Shadoon and I are friends, you know what I mean? Like we've kind of had, this is like a moment that we've had together, like doesn't go away. Like this was a big moment that we'll forever be able to like look back on and have a huge smile about, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't have like a weird like, well, I ended up beating you and that's funny, or like that's weird, he's sad about it, or I'm sad about it and I'm not, or he is. And like both of us walked away very happy. And I think that's I think it was really cool that we got to be able to do that. And it was really nice of Twitch and the event organizers to allow that. Because by all means, they didn't have to do that. They could have just been like, fuck you, you don't get anything, which I was fine with at that point. But, you know, there was a third party, which was the event organizers in Twitch, and they ended up, you know, following along. And I haven't heard anything about them being mad about it. They seem to have been okay with it at the end of the day.
And you sort of saved the event, to be fair. So it'd be a bit bad if they were unhappy about it. You like you said,
well,
you
sure,
left it on a good,
I guess so.
Like, I mean, in my eyes, you left it on a nice, good note from.
Well, you just said you still know about it. Like this is still like a meaningful thing to people. Like people still know about it and remember it, and I still mentioned to me about it. Like it was cool to basically make something that ended up being a lot of heartbreak and hard stuff emotionally for some people. Like it was nice to at least tie the end of it in a nice little bow that like people really liked, you know what I mean?
Out of pure curiosity, how long does like a payout like that take for you to receive? Just for anyone who's listening and might be in a future Twitch Rivals and is curious. If you don't know, answer, that's fine.
I think it took about 2 months, 2 or 3 is
that's
typically
decent,
the time frame.
actually,
I've been in a few other Rivals events. It typically is like 2 to 3 months. They gave me an exact, because it was like the most I've won won, you know, in any of these ever. So there was so much that I had to know when I was going to get it or around the time, because there's other times where I've won like a couple hundred, and not that I'm not grateful for that, because that's a great amount of money, but that sort of slides in with the rest of the paycheck compared to, you know, 5 digits. So I did ask them, and it was something like, they said like it was 90 days after the event. It has to do with the event. It's like the 2 or 3 months after the event itself ends is when they kind of do the payouts. Not like with the Twitch paycheck. It just happens to be like whenever the event ends in that time frame. They have like their own system for it, apparently.
That's interesting. That's actually a really decent time.
I mean, they could have spent like a whole year being like, hold on,
man. I don't know how I'd cope if like I knew 40 grand was coming into my, well, it'd be less because it's in dollars, so in quotation marks less. It doesn't matter. The point is, if I knew that amount of money was coming into my PayPal, my bank account, I don't know how I'd cope for 2 months. Like, you know, so respect.
It was crazy. I mean, it still is. Like, it's wild. It was a wild thing to somehow accomplish. I mean, to mention like basically having to outperform 148 other people who also wanted that amount of money, you know, like just thinking about like the effort put in that whole week. Like, it's so weird because I'm just not a very serious person. It's very weird to like know that I did that, because I just am not that serious. And I'm not that competitive anymore. I play volleyball in my free time. That's kind of where my competition goes. But in gaming, like not a whole lot. But I remember having this tournament slid my way, and I was kind of like, you know, I might give a shit about this, because it's a weird amount of money. Like, I might as well try to see what happens. So I guess, you know, oops.
I had a weird dream the other night. It was actually more specifically on Friday after I'd been out drinking. And for some reason in my sleep, I'd completed a maze and like won 20 grand. And I was screaming, like actually screaming in my head. And it felt real up until like some random like dog that I've never seen before walked into my room.
Yeah, it's like you look in your pocket and it's not your phone. You're like, wait a fucking second.
Wait,
it's always some dumb. It's always something weird.
And I was with my partner. She was like, I'm so glad you didn't wake up screaming, because like I told her like if I'd woke up screaming, it was so loud. Like to the point where in the dream I got told off by my parents. Like, it's so strange. Yeah. It's so weird. But yeah, I don't know. I guess it's just weird that happened, and now I'm talking to you about winning much. So
yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's weird.
Speaking of like tournaments, then we might as well keep on this topic. One thing I respect about MCC Twitch Rivals, and we'll find out if it's the same on Saturday, which I'm assuming it's going to be, is every single player gets the same amount of money, bar the winners who get a little bit extra. You've played an MCC. You've won it twice, back in season 19 and season 28. I say season, tournament number 19 and 28. And you've also won a Block Wars. The Block Wars Rookies 2. But you came
a few Block
fourth
Wars, I think. 2 or 3.
Yeah, but I'm looking at
I don't remember how many.
More so looking at your stats here. For some reason, the website isn't fully updated. It just says you have 1 win, but you've made 2 finales. I know you won back to back. Yeah, you won back to back with like relatively the same players.
I remember making the first finale. The first Block Wars I ever did, I remember making the finale and losing. Yeah, but I've definitely won 2 or 3 since then. I won the Rookies. I've won with Joe Bartolozzi like 2 or 3 times, because it's become a thing where it's like we have to run it back together because we have to win together. Yeah, because you won Rookies 2 with Handsome Fella, Big Puffer, Joe Bart, and Pezzy, and then you got put together again with Joe Bart and Handsome Fella, and you won that tournament. It's just not on the website for some bizarre reason. So I know you definitely have won 2. I don't know about a 3rd one. But yeah, actually, and I just found out today that I can't actually play in the Block Wars that's coming up this Saturday. I'm doing like stuff with my family, so I can't even participate, which is sad. I don't know how I didn't realize until like a week before, but that's heartbreaking. It's okay. That Block Wars is at the same time as there's a tournament called Mayhem, if you ever heard of it, doing a viewer event. Oh well, I work with it, so we're doing a viewer event. And Block Wars is scheduled at the same time, and it's just like there's so little months with Rising and TwitchCon, and then there's so just hard. Not like especially like now with like conventions and holidays and stuff. It's just a hard. I imagine it's hard to find a day that isn't taken by something, because also like events are becoming like a bigger thing slowly as well. So now there's like 7 or 8 of them kind of sprawling around in their own, carrying their own weight. Way more than that. Yeah, probably way more. I'm definitely underestimating, but yeah, it's just I bet it's really hard to find like the correct day. I didn't participate in the last Block Wars because I think they had to move around for MCC, and then I was flying home from a cruise event I was in a couple of days before it, the same day Block Wars started. So it was like, it's just it's really hard, and I imagine you know, it's getting harder because once again, events are getting more and more, and some of them are really getting out there, like Block Wars and MCC have. Like they're making their own little mark and having their own little fun twist and fun differences and stuff. So I imagine it's tough.
What is your, like, do you have any specific event memories that you love? Minus the Twitch Rivals, because we've already talked about that doesn't count.
Right, yeah, like I'm assuming that one is already like established as one.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't know. I always really like MCC. Once I started, because you know MCC is fine as is, and it's a very fun event. But once I started getting like super into it, it's made them more fun. Because like I like to actually dress up in person for a lot of them too now, and it makes it gives like another sort of like emotional investment into it that like makes it more fun. Winning in an Elsa costume was really funny. That was like a winter or two ago. I don't remember exactly, but I remember winning one of the MCCs in a full Elsa cosplay.
Number 28.
So I remember that one. That one was super fun. I remember my team color for my first one was blue, and I think I was with Phil.
Yep.
And Burren and Wisp, right?
Yeah.
So I remember like my first team. I remember that. I remember doing terribly. I remember doing really well last MCC I played in.
It was your highest in-div performance actually ever, right? By one. I'm starting
to pop off. It's fine.
You're becoming the god. Oh my god.
No. I don't envy that position at all.
You're becoming
I just like
better.
I just like to compete and have fun. It's a very unserious event that like has fun making it, and it's fun that like, especially for like the Twitch Rival stuff, like the one in San Diego coming up. Like it's nice to go into it knowing that no matter what, like I'm getting a certain amount out of it. Like that's great. I think that's a good way to do it because it makes all of the people a part of it excited and like know it's worth it no matter what. And that makes everything and all of the players more like enthusiastic. There's something about those events like the House of Nightmares one where it's like making the prize pool so gigantic, but also at the same time, like nobody gets it. Is like you just make a bunch of salty people out of it, because whether or not people really care about money, mostly like people still care about money, and knowing that you just got like scammed out of, you know, however many upsets people, like no matter what, like you're going to be upset. And like, but creating an event with the idea of making the prize pool negligible compared to like what it could be, and then making it to where like, you know, how MCC is where like the first place, like the winners get a little more, but not much to where like everybody else feels like, well, what the fuck? You know what I mean? I think it's a good way to do it. And it creates this level of enthusiasm and fun for everybody to where like competitive, but at the end of the day, nobody's going to like lose sleep knowing they lost like actual $20,000. You know what I mean?
I don't know if you were in it, I can't remember, so sorry. But watching the gun one even made me salty, and I wasn't even bloody in the event.
No, I wasn't, but I remember hearing a lot of problems about it.
By salty, I just mean more so the fact that only one person got 100 grand and like everyone else. Like, they were a team. They were such a big team of like 4 people, and I think like it was split privately.
The Squidcraft one went too, right? It was like the first place got 100 grand, and that was it.
I don't remember the Squidcraft one actually. Sorry.
Apparently, that was also the case. I did not know that either at the time.
Yeah, it's right. I mean, just like at least, I think at least to kind of pay for the streamer's time, guarantee everyone gets like $100 at least. Like, and that'll make it worth it.
It's a huge time commitment. Like, especially the couple of day long ones. That's a big time commitment.
I mean, yeah, because I work like an 8-hour shift and I get paid, give or take, that price. So you're basically doing an 8-hour shift for free if you don't make it to the final.
Like, people got shit to do, like other stuff. Like, I have stuff outside of this as a job. Like I have a child, and like I have my wife who like I would want to do stuff with, and like I have, you know, hobbies. Like sitting someone down for like 5 days and not guaranteeing them some sort of compensation besides like, well, you're a part of it and it's fun, is not exactly enough for some people, and like understandably so. Like it's enough for me because I'm in a position where I'm comfortable enough to not to take the hit if I were to get nothing. But you know, some people are in your position where they have a different job on top of being such a good creator where they can juggle both. And so it's like they have to sacrifice basically, you know, their wage or taking an event that's not even guaranteeing them the money that they're going to lose spending time doing it. And I think that's like, that alone is like, well, what the hell are you doing then? Why aren't you compensating these people for using them in this matter? You know what I mean?
To put into a bit of perspective as well, and not to make it about me, but also kind of make it about me.
No, go ahead.
I work so that week, I remember I was on the closing shift. That was the part of me that was like, oh, if I somehow get in, because I applied, of course, everyone's going to apply. If I somehow get in, I'd change the opening, which I could have done. But I was on the closing shift, and if I remember correctly, so this week that this podcast is coming out, the midweek MC that came out on Wednesday would be the last for like a little while. So basically, I for the last year, I've been uploading 2 podcasts every single week, and I edited them up in full, blah, 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 right? During the Twitch, during that Twitch Rivals, if I remember correctly, I had the closing shift, so I wasn't finishing until 5:30. Then I also had to postpone one of the podcasts because one of the people who were in the event made it to the end, so I had to postpone Monday and Wednesday's podcast, I think, like later on in the week. And then bearing in mind, I record on a Wednesday, it comes out the Wednesday after. I record on a Monday and it comes out the Friday after. So pushing 2 podcasts back until the end of the week, pretty much. Then having to cancel plans on a weekend to record the podcast, like I mean, I enjoyed it because I enjoyed the people I was talking to once again. If I'm remembering completely wrong, I could be. It was either the possibility it was happening or it did happen. But then even me who wasn't in the event still had to alter my schedule for someone who was in the event. And I think one of them made it to the final, so they got money for it. But then the other person I don't think made it to the very end. So like I rescheduled everything and I didn't even get anything from it, kind of thing.
And that's not even considered. Like when those events do stuff like that, they're not even thinking about, well, what about people with shit to do? Like,
I mean, they're turning down.
Not everybody wants to
sometimes.
sit down. Right. Well, like not everybody wants to sit down for a week and play Minecraft. Like I gladly did, but I can afford to. Like I'm grateful and lucky enough to be able to have done that and not have lost out if I didn't get anything at the end of the day. Like, but for you, for example, that's not you can't do that. Like that's not you can't just do that. Like normal people can't just drop everything and play in a 5-day event. And I think that it's just not very not a lot of foresight to be like, well, people will just play. They'll just play. And no, they don't get anything for it. I just think that's a bit silly. It's like everybody deserves a little bit of scratch. Like you can still make the prize pool pretty goddamn big and also give people at least something for their time. That way people don't feel as like scammed essentially, or feel like they wasted a week, you know? Exactly. Or even a day or two.
Whereas I don't know. It's so easy to commit to like a 3-hour tournament on a Saturday because you know you're not really getting anything from it, but you're having fun and you're playing with people. But with the hope of I can make £1,000 at the minimum here, $1,000 at the minimum, but I have to make it through 5 days. It's like, I'm going to take it because I feel like I can, but then I've possibly just turned down a $500 sponsorship on a Tuesday because I have the chance to make $1,000 on a Thursday.
Yep. So, and that's like, there's no thought about like the other things and other stuff people have to do or other ideas or opportunities that someone has in mind. Like I remember playing in one of the Minecraft League tournaments, like one of the game, like the MOBA game that Pika developed. And I remember my team getting shit on. We got dead last. It wasn't even close. Like we did not play well. Everybody else clearly had a better idea in mind and outplayed us no matter what. And I remember being frustrated. I also remember that we got like something like $600-$700 each despite that. Just for getting shit on for like a day. Like we had a terrible time. You know, the vibes were okay. We had a terrible time getting like owned competitively, but at the end of the day, we all got a couple $100. So it's like we all left kind of like satisfied, like fine with it. And like that's the correct way to do it. You need to like consider the person who's going to get last and if that person's going to be okay with it at the end of the day. And I feel like if it's a no, you have to fix something. Like there's something that needs to be adjusted because like just making 130 people go through, like obviously all of them, because some of them got eliminated pretty quick, but like especially like the people right under the 20 marker, making all of them go through like 4 days of nonsense just to basically get nothing out of it, that sucks. I mean, that sucks. I hated the idea of being in that position. And I feel for anybody who did end up being in that position. Like that would suck. And not thinking about that situation happening and then dealing with like, 30 angry creators. I don't remember how many people got eliminated in that event that ended up being the cutoff, but not even considering that those people are going to be pretty pissed off. It's just lack of planning, really. I mean, I don't know.
I think one thing as well is like this isn't even about this event. I'm kind of linking back to the gun one as well.
Yeah,
I don't
really know what ended up happening, but feel free to give me context.
I'll say one thing. This isn't about context about what happened in the final. This is just a funny scenario. So in the very first like game of the because that was over 5 days as well, right? In the very very first thing, I remember Fruitberries boxed someone in and then got like a massive got in trouble really badly and got sent to like the gulag thing. No matter how well they did, today was in the gulag where it was only one person could survive out of 20 people, in which he survived. He made it through, right? Then from this went all the way to the very 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 final, having been screwed over at the very start, just to essentially receive nothing. So he went through all of that, all this stress, all this like amazing play. Obviously, a lot of people were watching him and a lot of people hyped him up. And I guess like, there was the gift subs and donations and stuff. Like I'm not sure how much he got, but I know it just happened because that's what streamers get. But like to go through all of that and then in the final just not receive anything from Twitch specifically. I'm not saying maybe the person who won it split. I think I heard something, but I won't get into that. But from Twitch alone, to go through all that stress, all that shakiness, all that thing, to make it to the final like 5 people, I think it was, the final 3 even, and then just to lose is like
exactly.
damn.
I mean, creating all that strain and all that like all the drama, all the upset fans, because I'm sure he eliminated people who
I mean the 20
fans,
people. Well, a lot of people are annoyed about the Gulag, yeah, because it was like one
like,
OP free berries against 19 people who were legitimately there.
Yeah, so it's like, you know, it not really considering all like the strain and stress and drama that's going to create, knowing that you're basically telling more people than not in your event tough shit if you get eliminated. Like it just seems really silly. Like especially when in like these events in particular, when the prize pool isn't significant, it's so big, you can 100% split that further down. Like you can 100% spread that cash further down to make everybody involved a little okay with getting eliminated. And like not doing so after so many times of this happening and people getting so like livid, understandably, like I just don't know how they're not considering doing it. I hope that they do. I hope that like the moment that I ended up creating with Shadoon is kind of a teaching lesson. Maybe they'll do it. I don't know.
They have the capabilities to do so why not?
100%. I mean, with the money, like the prize pool, they can 100% do it. And I hope that they would. I hope that they would take like the lesson learned from the Nightmares event and do better next time. I don't know. Maybe there's somebody higher up pulling strings that wants that big payout because something about it is either exciting for audiences or they think so. I don't know. I don't know what the logic is because the logic to me seems really flawed.
Maybe
you think about it
could be taxes.
Yeah, well, you think about it for one person. You just think about it for anybody else not getting that money, and you just think about how sad that must be, and you're like, well, we shouldn't do that. That's fucked up. I don't know.
I'm not like really a sore loser per se, and this is going to be a rough comparison. I went out to play pool with my dad the other night, right? Because we go every now and then, and I was winning 15-12, right? And there was 10 minutes left before we ran out of time, and he pulled it back and beat me 16-15, right? Because he's just better than me, and that left me sad for like an hour. Because I was so far ahead, right. I was going to finally beat my dad. And there was nothing on the line. No money, no nothing. So if I got to the final game and I just missed out on 100 grand with no compensation after 5 days, I don't know how I'd take that. I have a lot of respect to the people who take it well because I don't know what I'd do. Like, I wouldn't do anything bad. I'd carry on streaming stuff, but I would be... Like, it's not me personally. It's enough to literally dig people into depression. If you're that close to winning life-changing money and then losing with no compensation, that can cause really bad mental health.
I was emotionally distraught from it and being the winner, like winning the event and doing such a meaningful thing with it. Even that left me so like, I remember just sitting in a chair for like the next day. Just I don't think I streamed. I'm pretty sure I got sick. Like I think I just sat in a chair for the whole day because like the physical and emotional drainage that happens during stuff like that isn't like considered nearly enough. But like, I mean, it was crazy. I mean, like, especially the further in, like the intensity and the pressure and the stress, and with all like the random mishaps that caused a lot of like arguments and stuff, like all of that stuff adding up all together, you just got to compensate people. You got to make people have at least something to get out of it, because you involve money in these competitions and people will get upset, and like not even in a way that isn't valid. Like it's a totally valid reason to be upset, because waving 40 grand in somebody's face and then basically giving them a middle finger at the end of the day is crazy to me. I mean, that is a wild thing to do to somebody, and then you just shouldn't be shocked when people are that upset about it. Ultimately, I guess I will say I hope they do better.
I mean, like I said, that's why I respect MCC so much. Like as a basis, you're guaranteed £3,000, and then if you win, you get 4,000. Like at least you're like, oh, I missed out on £1,000, but I'm walking away with 3,000. Like I'm happy.
Right, but you still get something in your pocket that makes you smile. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And you streamed and you did content and you gave them your time and then got a thank you in return. Like, okay.
Exactly. Your time is compensated because you get to go to a cool event, you get to perform and have fun, and then also you get financially paid. in a situation where Twitch is basically asking to have a prize pool, essentially. Like, I don't think MCC can like opt out of the money. I know they've tried.
I think they have to say yes, yeah.
I think they have to have some sort of prize pool because of it being like a competition thing.
Like esports, in it. Like, you can't really do esports without prize.
Exactly. And I imagine Twitch doesn't want to set a standard of like, well, we'll just host events with no money. I imagine they want to keep this premise of like these rivals events have like a cash prize. I think there's a better way to go about them. But I get that like Twitch doesn't want to budge and MCC is just doing what they can do with having to do that. And I think it's the best way to handle it. Yeah. I think it's the best way to handle it personally.
Kind of to move a little bit away from events then here and more specifically into other content you've made throughout the years. One thing...
Yeah, we've been rambling for like 30 minutes about it.
But it's good. I love these kind of talks though. Like it's nice to interview you, but it's also nice to kind of... Like this is an archive now. Instead of saying it on a stream VOD which you'll upload to YouTube and will get lost, people can actually actively search up Sneegsnag if they want to listen back to this conversation. If something similar in like 5 or 6 months time, if they do a Twitch Rivals where exactly what we wanted happened, people can come back to this and be like, damn, they said this 6 months ago.
Yeah, well, people can literally, like I said earlier, people can literally go to the day one VOD of the House of Nightmares event and hear me say to my chat that like, I don't remember the exact quote, but I was pretty sure I was like, chat, if I somehow made it to the final, I'd be extremely tempted to just split the prize if I was able to. And I did it. I did exactly that.
You've also made quite a bit of SMP content. You was in SMP Live. That was kind of during the beginning of your blog, wasn't it?
That was kind of the starting point. That was kind of like the initial boulder that rolled down the hill. I got asked to do it. I remember almost saying no, because I had done a handful of SMPs in the past unsuccessfully and kind of like whatever. So like a vanilla SMP, I was kind of like, this doesn't seem very fun. I'm not that into it at the time. And then I didn't think it was going to do much either. So it was really funny to like, I guess, say yes and then have it work out like that, basically be like the trajectory point of my career starting.
And then you also are now in the sleep deprived SMP as well.
Yeah, that's been pretty fun. I'm not playing on it a whole lot now, but the first rendition was really funny because it's kind of just like the people are just having fun. I think when you create that sort of thing with the idea of it doing well or blowing up, it's not going to have the same attitude. I think when like people are just there to have fun and have a good time, it's easier to like entertain and be entertaining, because it's like if you create a whole thing just to do well and to go viral or whatever, like your attitude and your way to go about it is already flawed, and you're not going to be the best you can be in terms of like entertainment, excitement, genuineness, like everything.
I mean, I guess, you know, I've watched a bit of Sleep Deprived and there's so many good moments. Do you have any that stand out to you or no? Not even just that, just SMPs in general.
SMPs in general. Well, the shrinking Slimesicle thing that you mentioned a while back is a really big one. That was like such a crazy anomaly. I still think that like when that was happening, I had the best perspective because I was already a small character on that server, and like his character shrinking into like literal microscopic size became like impossible for everybody else watching to see. So they all flocked over to my stream, and I still think that's probably one of the biggest peaks in viewerships I've had. I don't remember the exact number, but I do remember like looking at that number and being like, holy shit, like that's crazy. So that's a big one. I remember running around with Phil a lot in Origins. That's kind of what I think about the most, is like the dynamic Phil and I created within Origins was really fun and super significant for people. Just like the way we like went about stuff and messed with people and traveled and did like experiments and stuff together was super fun. Further back, like SMP Live, there's that video of me like taking on 5 different members at once, you know, not exactly all at the same time, but kind of. It was basically like there was the system of like somebody could pay us a certain amount of money and we would go kill somebody or prank them, and it became this thing of like I would annihilate somebody like instantly because I knew about like strength 2 potions being like super stupidly overpowered at the time. Like they didn't adjust the server to like nerf strength 2, so like I knew like strength 2 would be like you could just 2-shot somebody because they're just disgusting. I don't know if they've even fixed it still, I don't know, but it became this thing of like I would just wipe people out like instantly. And there was this moment where somebody, I don't remember, like paid me to kill everybody that was online. And then it was like such a bomb drop that like every person like on the server got warned. And then they like all jumped me in my base. Like they tried to like get the jump on me. And I remember like I mean, I that's like the moment of that server I think about a lot, where it was like, I remember like going through that process of fighting them all and like winning and coming out on top. And like that video was one of the ones that did super well at the time, and people still talk about.
Was it all legit? Like remember?
Yeah, no, that none of that's scripted or planned or anything. That was, I mean, that was kind of what made the server so fun, is like none of that stuff. And that's the same for Origins and SMP Earth even, and SDMP. Like none of that stuff. There's like for SDMP, I guess there's like events and like some stuff planned, but like a lot of it's off the cuff. There's nothing about that is like scripted or like planned out. Especially SMP Live. I mean, that was such like an innocent server at the time, because SMPs were so, everybody was like, well, that's not going to work. Nobody wants to watch that. Which sounds stupid now, but like now people love them. So it was like, at the time, it was just sort of like a thing people like. We'd like to do it as friends. Like we were hanging out as friends on the server and people were watching. So it was such like a much more innocent sort of deal. It was like, it was impossible. Nobody was even thinking at the time to like script out stuff like that, let alone create like huge lore segments and other things like that. Yeah, that's a total genuine like moment.
That's the thing about SMPs as well, because I was talking to Jumper yesterday. Our podcast got delayed into oblivion because of like us both being busy, and they said even with their SMP videos on Lifestyle, like they're all just legit. And it's kind of crazy when you look at these videos, you're like, they're not have to be, but they're so good that they have to be scripted, and then they're not. It's just you guys having fun, being genuine, and producing a great video like that.
I have and will die on this hill every single time. Like creating and streaming is an art form. Like the ability to do this and do it in a way that people find enthralling is an art form. It's not easy. Like it's not harder than some things, but like you can't just pick this up and be like this a charismatic figure in that regard. Like people that being able to take something so like normal, like a server, and direct it and produce it and release it in a way that's like it seems totally planned, that's a skill. Like, because I've seen some of the lifesteal stuff, like their ability to make stuff that they're doing on there seem like a very cohesive story and a very cohesive like idea. Like that's a skill. Like people, you can't just do that. That's not just something you can just pick up and figure out. That takes a lot of like knack and ability to do so, and that comes a lot from experience of doing it, but also just genuine wanting that to be like that, like wanting content like that to come out that way and to feel that way and to act that way, is like that's the intention of that. In the form of like wanting it to be entertaining, not just wanting it to do well or like wanting it to go viral, whatever. Like doing it to make it content and to make it entertaining content is like the ideal. And that's where you get the correct attitude, because it's hard to think of a whole lot of servers that do well or have done well, or creators that do well that make like everything about them is totally scripted. It's really hard to find them, because that like genuine nature of entertainment and content, especially on a streamer, is like what people seem to latch onto the most, whether or not people accept that or not.
And it's why a lot of people don't realize that with content creation, when people say it's very lucky or very rare for your first few videos to blow up, and it does take years, like your position here, and you've been doing it since 2019. They aren't lying. It is legitimate. It takes a lot of time to become something. I mean, the podcast has been around for 2 years, actively for like over a year and a half now, and as much as it hasn't grown to a great extent, I've gotten a lot of cool creators on, but it's still not anywhere near where it can be.
Right, and nobody's doing anything wrong if their stuff isn't doing well immediately. I think there's such like a weird expectation now that this job is seen as such a valid thing. There's such a weird like expectancy of like, you have to go viral, you have to blow up, you have to do it fast and well, and you have to take advantage of it immediately. It's like, that's not how any of this has worked. None of this works that way. Like if there was an exact formula or an exact way to like replicate virality or like figure out how to do well in some sort of step-by-step process, like all of these Mr. Beast channels, all of these like, well, not that that's aging well, but like all of the people trying to emulate exactly what he was doing and does do would be insane. Like they would all be just as big, but they aren't. Like it doesn't work like that. Like you can't just pick this up and follow a sheet of directions and be a viral star. And even if that did somehow become like that, you can't just like follow a formula and maintain that. Like it takes this like adaptability and genuine like attitude and enjoyment really like not only succeed but sustain it.
I've said this before with like content creation, in a sense of not even just growing, more so just like more so growing than it being a content creator. I think it was on the Phoenix podcast. You have to have some crazy grindset and some crazy mindset to keep doing content creation without seeing much reward, because a lot of people, and it's why a lot of people give up so quickly or so lackluster with it, is because they think it's instant success. Because being a content creator full time is amazing. You get loads of money, you get loads of opportunities, you get to go to cool places. Like these people who are living in quotation marks lavish lives it isn't exactly a false representation of what content creation can be, as opposed to a good representation of, if you keep it up, what content creation can be.
Well, funny enough, there's apparently becoming more and more ways for people to emulate that lifestyle instead of like actually having it. I went down this rabbit hole of this creator on TikTok. I don't remember her name, but she like went especially into LA, because LA is such a big spot for like creators to be and succeed and show success, whatever. She like deep dove into this, like all of these businesses that will just like loan out lavish stuff like clothes, cars, buildings, stuff. Like she was like, people will spend $100 a day for this giant mansion that they can claim to live in. They'll make content for a week and then they'll go back to their wherever they live that isn't in any way close to the same. And then they'll edit a week's worth of content of them basically saying that they're like this extremely lavish, successful creator and just basically look the part. It's actually crazy. I hate that I don't remember her name or like exactly what she was labeling this content, but she's done it like multiple times where she's found this exact building that these people like film in and are like, they're literally renting this out. They're paying $50 a day just to say that they live in this place, and they don't. And their cars are the same. It's crazy. It's crazy. No, like it's hard to even think that somebody would do that, because especially
it's weird.
Well, especially for me too, because like I went about this and still do in such a way that I just enjoy it and appreciate what I've gotten. That it's like, it's hard for me to imagine somebody being like, yeah, I'm just gonna do this and everything I'm doing with it, I'm just going to fake. It's all gonna be like made up. Everybody's gonna think I'm doing all this and have all this, but I don't. And I have all of these tools that'll make me seem a way that I'm not. Like that is such a crazy like attitude for me, but apparently in some regard it's real. I don't know how much it's real, but it was a very fascinating little rabbit hole I found myself in the other day.
Sounds really interesting. I guess to be more precise with my one, I should have probably been a bit more specific to what I meant, is when, for instance, you playing in MCC or these people going to these cool YouTube parties, not like about living in a mansion, but like that is possible, like going to, like for instance, I saw like a bunch of pictures on Twitter of like, I think it was like Fulham, Dark Eyebrows, like a few other people I know from outside like the Minecraft community. They all attended this like YouTube creators party. So be it, I wouldn't have been able to go because I was at work, but it's more so that I wish I got invited kind of thing. Like it's not a wish as in like, oh, I'm begging for it to happen, but it's one of those things of, if you work hard enough, like they're in a position where they're going to get invited to this stuff, and it's just what can happen if you keep going whatever you're doing. If you feel like it's got potential, like I feel like InsideMC has potential at some point in the future, that's why I keep going at it so much, and hopefully I'll reap the benefits.
And I've said this a few times in the past, and I still say it, and it's like, no matter how well your content is doing in terms of like exposure, it doesn't like remove the validity. Like your content is still good even if 2 people watch it. Like it doesn't make your content is not more valid because it gets a certain amount of viewership. Like I'm having this like interesting, like, and I can tell you from experience, you're not going to feel different. Like I remember sitting in my car, realizing I reached, I don't even remember which milestone it was, like 400,000 on Twitter, which is slowly dwindling because Twitter's dying and whatever. It's a decrepency.
And in Brazil,
Yeah. Like, but I remember realizing I was like on a road trip with my wife, and I remember being like, holy shit, like I reached 400K on Twitter, and both of us were kind of like, cool. And then we just went on with our day. I'm telling you, that's exactly what you're going to do. None of these numbers and none of these like statistics that are like weighted as important are going to actually mean anything to you at the end of the day, because you're just going to go about your life no matter what. I'm having this like bubble on TikTok right now where like these like my mods have this ability to control parts of my stream, and so they can put on images and GIFs and like mess with me a bit, and it's become this like running gag, but it's starting to pick up on TikTok, and I'm getting like millions of views that I've never had and never expected. I don't feel any different. Like, it's exciting and I'm grateful, but I will tell you right now, I do not feel different. And I don't feel like I'm doing anything significant or crazy to get that. And if you're a person struggling to create because you feel like you need more attention, like you're not going to feel better because you're getting more attention. At the end of the day, you will have the same exact feeling that you have now once like that bit of dopamine hits and disappears. Like it shouldn't be your driving factor. And if you're not getting enough viewership that you feel like is valid, or you feel like you should be getting more, whatever, like just remember that like what you're doing isn't less important or less valuable or less entertaining because less people watch it. Like you create this like comparison of you to other creators that just creates a terrible mental attitude for yourself. Like comparing yourself to anybody ever is terrible for yourself. Then making it about like statistics and numbers makes it even worse. Like you should never sit there and talk about and think about how like you should be like somebody else or be doing better than somebody else or like have what they have, do what they do, get what they got. Like you're a completely different person. You create something completely different. Your journey is completely different. You don't even know what they've gone through and what they've done or the work they've put in. They might have deserved it in quotes because nobody deserves this, but they might have deserved it better than you, and you don't know that. Like the sitting there and ridiculing yourself or torturing yourself with all of these like numbers and ideas of like people are doing better or you should be doing better, whatever. Like it creates this terrible attitude that will not only not make you happy, but won't do anything for you if you actually go about it that way and achieve in that regard. Like I'm telling you right now, you are not going to feel different. You might think so, and you might think so for a bit or feel so for a bit, but at the end of the day, your life is going to move forward and everybody else's is just the same way. So like create content without that idea in mind, at least predominantly. It doesn't create like it makes you have a terrible mental attitude. This is something that like I've had to struggle with a lot because I do feel like that sometimes. Like I feel like I have a significant amount of friends that are like much larger than me. And like it's hard for me sometimes to not be like, well, what the fuck? You know what I mean? But it's important not to, because you don't want to do that to yourself, because I'm not my friends. My journey is different than theirs. And they could be saying the same thing about me. And I don't know. They could be jealous of everything else I have that they don't. And like, just to sit there and torture yourself with all these ideas of like other people's lives and how much better they could be or yours isn't, like, it's just not good for you. Like, and being able to like break that attitude and being able to like work past that is what makes a good creator like a great creator. Somebody who can just move and be a force without this like fear of not succeeding enough or thinking too hard or thinking other people are criticizing or caring too much. You know what I mean?
I'm gonna parrot you here just to kind of show my agreement, but also kind of say what I want to say. I'm in nowhere YouTube guru. I mean, like I've never seen crazy success. My highest peak ever
Nobody
was
is. Like anybody trying to tell you that they are or trying to like say, I guess this is ironic given I was just giving advice, but like I'm not giving you advice in the regard of like, well, just do these things, like make these things these way, whatever. Like I'm not trying to they're trying to sell you something.
Yeah.
I'm not selling you something. I'm trying to tell you that you should be nicer to yourself and do it for like the fun of doing it, not like in a certain way because that's what works and I need to succeed.
I guess YouTube guru is probably the poor word in there. I know I'm not in a crazy experienced position for people to give for people to take my advice if they don't want to, but I just want to kind of leave my 2 cents on it. I think I'm in a decent position enough based on how I've been able to get people on the podcast and show that like this is something cool. So I think that helps a little bit. Just from talking to like, I've talked to well over 100 creators now over the last like year and a half, or give or take. And I think one thing that I've gathered is that like it's really cool to be in a position where you can do this full time. I'd absolutely love to have the podcast full time. I'd have a bunch more time to do all the ideas I want to do. But with it also comes the stress of like maintaining a lot of people think it's so easy, and as I sort of is like, as opposed to a retail job, it's working both. I obviously doing content is easier. In a basis of mental, you have to have such a good mental. You have to keep consistent, and like you can take breaks, of course, but then to kind of keep in quotation marks relevancy as a really broad term there. Like you have to kind of keep consistent with the content you're creating, like with that, be that streaming, be that YouTube, anything like that. But also you can't and this is the part where I parrot you here, is you can be satisfied with like a less amount of viewers. Like 100 people in the same small box room is a lot of people. And I know
It's
like in terms of YouTube, it doesn't feel like a lot, but 100, it's kind of like when I find like a pound coin on the floor, right? It's a pound more than I had. These 100 viewers is 100 viewers more than I had yesterday. Like every time I see my viewer count go up or my sub count go up, even if I gain 1 sub a day, that's 1 more sub than I had yesterday. Progress is progress, so be it slow.
Exactly right.
So you can still be happy. Of course, everyone wants to be in it, and I'm part of it. I want to be in a position where I'm satisfied and I'm happy and I'm doing this full time. But also, I think there is a point where you can try too hard. If you're really stressing and really trying to make, literally always see it as a hobby. How I see it, always see it as a hobby and something you're doing it for fun on the side, with the hope it becomes full time. And then when it becomes full time, you're happy. But then you have to deal with it being full time. So it's like double-edged sword.
I have thoughts on like the full time commitment in regards to like you were making comments about like the shift between it becoming like a hobby and becoming like the thing, like the financial thing, especially. Like there is so much to that people really don't talk about or consider. Like there is in regards to like the success of it all and like wanting to make that shift of like full time from like, you know, part time, stuff like that. Like there's such a huge mental shift because it's not just like what you enjoy anymore. It becomes like about everybody else, everything else, what will work, what won't work, what will succeed, what won't succeed. Like it's hard to not get trapped in this attitude of like doing it for the success rather than the enjoyment, because once it becomes the financial like backbone, it has to work. You know what I mean?
I mean, you've essentially. Oh, sorry to cut you off. I just want to add this quickly. You've essentially
you're about to say it. Yeah.
Yeah, you've essentially gone from, oh, this is a fun thing I do in my free time. I can hit go live after an 8-hour shift and just chat away to my chat, to crap, I got to make a certain income this month to pay my bills.
Exactly. Like it has to work in some way that like there's food on my table. You know what I mean? Like it seems stupid and obvious, but it's not really considered, because it's like, well, I'm having fun. Like, why would my attitude change if I'm just doing this? And it's like, it does. And you don't really notice until it's too late, really. I mean, like some people go in too deep and they never get back out. That's all they care about. And then some people are like, holy shit, like I'm really, like I've been there where I'm like, oh my God, like I haven't even realized for the past like 2-3 months, I've just been sitting here worrying more about what people are going to watch and what I think will be good to do, rather than like, I want to do that, I'm going to do it. You know what I mean?
You've essentially gone from crap, I've made like $2,000 this month for just having fun, to I've made £500 less this month. I don't know how that's going to affect me.
Exactly. Like you have to
reach a
significantly new like mental gymnastic in that regard, that like really there isn't a solution for. First of all, it's something that you continuously struggle with through the rest of like the whole time you do it. Like don't get me wrong, like it still happens and I still struggle. It's hard. It's hard to not go where the money goes, because money is like important and changes a lot of things. Like it's not going to be the thing that makes you happy ultimately, but it can make your life easier. And it makes sense to want that. And your life being easier will make you happier in some regard, but it's not going to fix everything that makes you unhappy, and it's not going to create everything that makes you happy. So it's like, it's understandable for people to point that way and to lean that way and to focus that way. But there is something about this job in particular that like really makes people accidentally like fall into that pit of like only financial success is important, not my own enjoyment or everybody else's. You know what I mean? That's how you get these like content slop and content mills of like channels just making like the biggest like brain rot just for the attention and the ad revenue kind of stuff, where it's like you can just kind of see that they're not actually into it that much. They're just doing it for like the revenue. You know what I mean?
Unless you want to say anything on that, I probably won't, because that's a topic that's happened on like so many podcasts recently. If you want to say your take on it, please feel free to, because it's always interesting to hear a different one.
Nah, I mean, that's pretty much where it's at, where it's like I feel for him in a little way, because I have been there in some way where it's hard not to be tempted by that, because it technically can be that easy. You can't just start doing all of these like popular things and trendy things and significant things, and you can hit those markets, and it probably can work out in some way, maybe financially, maybe successfully, but like at the end of the day, is that really what you want to do? And you know, time and time again, these channels or these people will do exactly that, and they'll get to this point where they don't want to do it anymore. But they can't stop because it collapses entire pillar that they've stood upon of like, my content is based on my success, not my enjoyment. So, and then when they deviate from like what they were doing to what they want to do, people are like, well, what the hell is this? This is not why I'm here.
Subscribe.
And so you fall off, I guess way to put it. And it's like, you know, there seems to be this weird like confusion and attitude that just doesn't make sense to me, because I just feel like when I on this sort of job and went into it, I was so young and had such a excitement to like just do it and entertain and have fun that like it is so foreign to me to like see somebody who's doing this clearly for like the money that it can get and the clout that it can bring. That it's such a weird thing for me to see that and be like, that makes sense, because it doesn't make any sense to me personally.
I say what I think you've done right, and whether you agree or disagree with it, that's completely fine. I know you're
whatever,
humble,
flatter me, I guess.
I still want to say anyways. I think what you've done right is there's a few things, right? And I'm going to say them out loud, so I'm not going to number them because I don't have a specific number. But a few things. Firstly, you never did it for the money. You obviously you're reaping the benefits of it. Of course you are. Like, you're at a stage where you can make it full time, but you never did it with that. You did it with the motivation of becoming full time, but not the, in quotation marks, easy way. Kids content is very easy to bring in the money. Says that. I think the second way is you grew in the right way. And by the right way, there's no right way to grow. But in my eyes, and referencing back to something we talked about earlier, my right way of growing is through personality or making good content. You grew through personality, so you're in a very lucky position, which you made your own luck. You made your own luck in this case. You're able to hit go live after this podcast, right? You can log on to, I don't know, Flappy Birds, a really shitty version of Flappy Birds, right? And you will still average over 500 viewers, give or take, because people are watching you, not your content. And you're in such a good position where you can do essentially anything you want to right now, and you're still going to hit, obviously you'll probably get more viewers playing Minecraft, which is fine, but you'll always hit a minimum, which is still a good minimum to be able to do this full time, because you don't do content that's perfect for the algorithm. You do content that people like you specifically.
Yeah, well, and I'm so lucky for that, man. Like, I can't express that to my audience enough, how lucky I am to have so many people who are like sticking with me, you know what I mean? And it's exactly that. It's because of what I have brought to the table, not like what I'm like putting on it, you know what I mean? Like, that doesn't make sense, but like, it's because of how I present myself. It's how I'm like presenting myself and performing, not like what I'm bringing to the dinner, you know what I mean? Like it's been really, I've been super grateful for it, because it is like that. Like, I can really just find the weirdest game ever. I did a stream where I literally played a game that was called like Skibbity Toilet Hero or something. Like, people loved it.
Of course,
like,
that's gonna do well though. Skibbity Toilet, like
but it was such like a random $3 game that like nobody was talking about. It wasn't like people were demanding I play it. I was just kind of like, this seems really stupid, I'm gonna do it. And I remember actually getting an email from the guy who made it. It was like, thanks, this actually pays for my rent. It was very cool of you to touch this game. I was like, oh, that's awesome.
Aww.
So I was really touched by it. I was like, that's really sweet. Wow. Yeah, it's like I'm in a very privileged position in that regard of like, people are showing up because they like the attitude and energy that I'm showing and giving during, so not like whatever's going on, you know what I mean? Like, I have fun stuff going on. Like, I play games that I know people will like sometimes, and I stick to that sometimes, but I don't do it where that's all I'm doing. Like, I've been playing Vault Hunters on Minecraft for like over a month now, even on my free time, because my brain won't stop thinking about it. Like, I could have played half of these games that people are talking about or liking lately, but like, I feel like I can't put this mod pack down because I'm so like obsessed with doing well on it that like I've brought it into my content, and now it's becoming like a thing, a regularly expected thing for my audience as well, because they're starting to really enjoy watching it and wanting more of it, and enjoying like parts of it that are exciting that you wouldn't normally understand unless you really have like indulged in it. So I've always been, you know, super grateful for that. And it isn't the smartest way to grow, for sure. I am not a big creator. I'm not like the biggest creator. I don't blow up. I'm not in any way blowing up, nor do I think I ever will.
But you're happy.
But I'm happy, exactly. Like the stuff that I do makes me happy. It makes the people watching happy, and I get stuff all the time from people who are even like, I'm going into criminology because of the stuff that you share on stream. That's crazy to me. I don't even use my degree, and I am like inspiring people to seek out the same knowledge, you know what I mean, and to potentially do so. That is so wild to me, and like to be able to do that even to one person is like so lucky. And I don't think people think about that enough. But two, like I can't like expect that. Like I'm just grateful that anybody's here, let alone enough to do it in such a way that like I can just do it. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. It's just not that serious. Like it's really hard for me to not be grateful, and it's really hard for me to like try to get in the mindset of some of these other creators that are just so determined to like be the next big thing or like be viral or do the trends. Like the stuff from TikTok that I'm talking about recently, like earlier, that was like getting me all this attention. Nobody else is doing it. Nobody else was doing it. It was an idea that I found off of Moon's stream, and I was like, I don't know how his mods are controlling his stream. I want that. So I sought out one of my friends who knows how to code, and he created this for me. And it's its own thing. Like I'm blowing up more than I thought I would ever, doing something that nobody was like wanting or expecting or demanding. Like there is something to be said of creating your own uniqueness. Like that is really what makes people stand out. Like this job is so demanded and wanted and made that like you're going to be one in a million, in the sense that everybody's going to be trying to do the same thing. So you might as well keep trying to do the different stuff, because like people don't know what they want. Like a lot of people don't know what they want, and you might be surprised by like things that work out. I wasn't expecting SMP Live, like the first opportunity I got as a streamer. I did not expect that to be good at all. I almost said no. I didn't want to do it because I didn't think a vanilla SMP was going to be very fun for me, let alone people wanting to see it. And it literally changed my life. So it's like you just don't know. And to pretend like you have some sort of solution or idea or know better or can like push out everybody else by doing similar is like, I don't know. It just seems like a really weird, the logic just doesn't seem very sound to me, because it's like, well, what's the change there? Like, what are you bringing to the table, really?
Think so for instance with me, kind of to relate to that, is like I started off with command block tutorials, and then I did gameplay videos, and then while working a warehouse job I listened to the Jack May Happy Hour podcast. I wanted to be sitting down with a creator like yourself and all the creators I've sat down with, but 2 years ago I didn't think this would ever happen. I thought like I'd be stuck in limbo, or I would still be doing the podcast but I wouldn't have the opportunities I have now. And like content creation, I think a lot of people nowadays are really scared to try new ideas. As you said, you're blowing up from a completely original idea. People are too scared because the basic works, right? And what a lot of
TikTok especially is so incentivized to like copycat and parrot that like people, that's all people do at the time.
I mean, I know of some other Minecraft podcasts, but I don't think I can even, I could be completely wrong here, so if someone's listening to this, please correct me if I'm wrong. I can't think of a single Minecraft podcast that interviews content creators or does podcasts like we're doing right now. I genuinely can't think of one. Like, I'm not trying to be egotistical in that sense, but this is something completely new.
I can't. Untapped. I don't certainly seek them out, but I really can't think of one that's like that's the Minecraft podcast. You know what I mean?
Exactly. I mean, I know like there's the Spawn Chunks that talks about like Minecraft and Minecraft updates, the Withering Effect that does like also relatively the same thing. I mean, I've seen people advertising as sign a podcast and stuff, and some people do similar things to podcasts. But this is untapped potential because I've decided to risk it and do something original. And now look at the people I've gotten to talk to, which is cool.
Well, and I will tell you from experience that is like this, not even just the smart attitude, but the correct attitude. Like being able to think like that and explore ideas and be adventurous and try differently is like what really does make someone stand out at the end of the day. Because it is like that. Like there are so many safe ways to go about it that there are valid ways to like follow a formula, whatever, like go down a path that might work out, like I said earlier. But what are you really bringing? Like, and what if you don't like it? What if you follow an entire trend of patterns and algorithms for 5 years and you become, a couple million on TikTok, but then you're sick of it? And what do? You can't stop. If you flip scripts, people are going to be like, the fuck's going on here? I don't want to do that.
I mean, I did it with the tutorials. I genuinely enjoyed the tutorial content, but when I decided I didn't enjoy it anymore, no one watched my new videos. And that's why Insane Orbits is now dead. This is why InsideMC exists, because this is something I genuinely enjoy and I don't think I'll stop.
And that's what you should be doing. doing. You should be going for the enjoyment, not just like what is working. I don't know.
Exactly.
It's just attitude. Like there's so much mental attitude at the end of the day to this that like really isn't discussed, let alone encouraged, because all that's encouraged is like, you know, algorithmic parroting and trending and virality and stuff like that. And it's like, you know, there are more people who average around my view count on Twitch than people like Hassan or Queso and stuff like that. The backbone of Twitch's financial success are like the couple 100 to 1,000 concurrent viewer streamers, because like there are so many that are consistently steady in getting like that consistent amount of revenue that it outperforms statistically and viewership wise. This isn't me coping, by the way.
No, I agree.
I know it kind of does sound like it, but
no, yeah, I agree.
Like there are so many 1,000 1K Andes, whatever, that they outperform technically all of those big time guys. And this isn't like a lot of respect for all of them. This isn't like I'm better than you, whatever. But you don't need to be that high up. It's cool if you do. Like I imagine it would be very cool to be as high up as some of them have reached. But from my perspective and from my experience, you don't have to be there. You can do extremely well and be extremely happy doing what you want in a smaller way. Totally fine. Like, you know, I get to go downstairs and hug my daughter and spend time with my wife. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like not as a flex, but like that didn't happen because I became like this viral star. Like that happened because I took the time outside of this to like take care of the rest of my life at the same time. Like there's a balance that needs to be like respected and figured out. That's a whole different art form, is figuring out a balance between the job and your life, because that's a whole nother problem of full-time content. Is like some people get so consumed by it that it's the only thing they have going for them, and it's like, yeah, well if the lights turn off one day and the stage is gone, like where are you going? Like where are you gonna go?
And a lot of people do genuinely enjoy it. Like, I mean, the people who are streaming 10 hours a day, like if they enjoy it, that's fine. Like that's working hours, that's retail job working hours. It's 8 hours. If you're doing overtime, you're doing 10 hours, and that's completely fine. But don't let it for instance, like Icicle Speed is traveling the world right now streaming. Like I think he genuinely just enjoys doing that, which is so
fine. Cool. I mean, that is such amazing. A cool thing.
Yeah. But then that's not for me personally. Like I like to go to Europe and I like to go to different countries, but I couldn't imagine streaming multiple different countries and having all these people approach me, because that's just not for me. But for a lot of people it is, and it's not a problem that it is, but just do something you enjoy. That's why I said, like, I mean, we've said it basically so many times this podcast. A lot of people, when they're getting into content creation, look at what works. They only last about a year at most, and that's being generous. There's the people who do it for enjoyment, last for 11 years like you have.
Yeah, I mean, half of that's unsuccessful, but 5 of that is full-time now at this point, so
it doesn't matter how long it's unsuccessful for. Like, I'm talking to you while you're successful right now. It works.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I guess that's very true.
So it doesn't matter how long it took you. Yeah. It worked. You mentioned about playing the variety game, the Skibbity Toilet one. So I haven't really played many horror games in my time. I really want to play that new one. I have it saved on Steam. It's about the Dead by Daylight origin. I can't remember the bloody name of it. It looks really, really cool. Anyways, one of my favorite ones I have quite a few funny clips from is Choo Choo Charles. And you had an impact on Choo Choo Charles in your own way, didn't you?
Of course I did. Yeah, I was a character. I voiced John Smith in Choo Choo Charles. Very fun.
How did that come to be?
That happened because a long time ago, Two Star was posting content about Choo Choo Charles, like early in development. And I remember reaching out a long time ago being like, hey, I think like your idea and what you're doing is really cool. Like if you need anybody to like help in terms of voice acting and stuff, like I am super down. This was like literally bare bones. Like he had barely anything to it yet, like years ago. And he was super receptive. He was like, absolutely, dude, like add me on Discord. We can keep in touch and stuff. And like, I don't even remember. I didn't remember it. And like a year or so afterwards, he reached back out and he was like, hey man, like it's that time. Like this stuff's going really well. Like I would love for you to help me in this way. So that's kind of how it happened. That's kind of what I've been enjoying doing, is like with voice acting stuff, I've been enjoying like finding game devs who have a really cool idea, who I think I could like assist, because the ability for me to voice act more is fun for me, and experience for me that is important in voice acting. And then I also get to support an indie developer who might not have had that resource or the ability to find somebody with like the same amount of passion or the same amount of skill that I might possess in terms of voice acting. So that's kind of how that came to be. It was very cool, and it's still a very proud moment for me.
Twitch Rivals was made by a singular dev, right? Like, I love that game.
Yeah, it was one guy for, I think his development time was two or 3 years, something like that.
Which is mental. And it was,
yeah, he's working on a new game.
Is he? Oh.
Yeah, I can't remember what the exact name of it is right now. I think it might be called, I'll just look him up really quick and make sure I'm not being stupid.
Because I'm looking at your
Cuff Bust.
Cuff Bust. Oh.
Yeah, it's like a bust out of jail together sort of game. It looks very silly and stupid. So we will be playing.
I need some context on this because I don't know what this means.
Sure.
So looking at your IMDb, and I think you have referenced this before, but I wanted to do it on the podcast anyways. What is Minecraft Championships, the TV series?
I don't know.
Why is that there?
I don't know. I did not put it there. I guess somebody just put MCC on there.
It has 9.1 stars. Like, I mean, I
don't know. I still don't know why that's there. I did not put it there. 5. I didn't even make that IMDb page. Somebody just made that. And I don't know. I don't know how, like, I don't know why somebody put that there. It's just like MCC is just there.
Oh, wait. They've actually got MCC as like a whole
it's
TV
like a
thing.
TV series on there. Yeah, it's wild. God.
There's Callum Knight CPK, one of the only people with a profile picture. That's so funny, actually. But you have also, in all seriousness, you have actually voice acted in other things as well. There was the I Married a Monster on a Hill. You was an extra in that video game, it says. And then the
that one's still being made, but it's been announced that I'm helping with that, so that's cool.
Oh, it hasn't come out yet. Okay.
Yeah, soon enough.
And then the big one is Generation Lost, a social experiment.
Yeah, very fun. Super fun. Yeah, that was a super fun experience that Rand created. I think they just recently announced the newer stuff.
I think they did, yeah.
Next, so that's really cool. But yeah, we spent like a week or so in an abandoned mall and did like a 3-day horror stream where we basically did a lot of just like improv acting. There was barely any scripted stuff. A lot of it, at least with my involvement, most of my involvement was all improv. And we practiced stuff and like did rehearse some lines and tried some stuff, but all of it in the moment, there wasn't like an exact script or anything. It was like the scenarios were scripted, but the dialogue was made up. But it was super fun. Being nostalgic towards an abandoned mall is very weird, but it's true. It's a mall and it doesn't exist anymore. They demolished it like a week or two after we filmed in there. Rand's team somehow found this mall and made this deal with this company who owned it to like slip in there and film for that week we were there. They were there for like a month or two. They were there for a long time. And then, like basically a week or two after we finished and they got out and cleaned out the areas, they demolished it. It's gone.
You're telling me that wasn't real? Being in the shot in the supermarket wasn't real? Oh my god! Baked it. Shopping mall.
Next question.
Bit like the house thing. There's gonna be a TikTok theory on you soon.
That's wild. Like nobody can. Yeah, no, people can't go and be like, this was the abandoned Sears that the cabin was made in. Like they can't go there. It's just gone
forever. That's lore. That's actually kind of crazy lore.
Yeah. The other crazy lore is it was almost filmed in the mall that I grew up around in St. Louis. They were cutting a deal with the Mills Mall in St. Louis. Shout out. Except there was something like they had a theater room that they really wanted to use, but they were trying to charge them like an insane amount of money to be able to even walk in it. So
crazy.
Almost didn't have to leave for work.
I don't get why like things do this. Just like, I mean, such a reasonable amount. If no one else is going to use it, why do you have to charge so much? Come on.
That is kind of the funny part. Is it's like, bro, like, what are you even charging this much for? Like, is there a line? Like, people waiting to get in? Like, no, not really.
I don't think people care that much about a theater room anymore. And then you find a really good alternative anyways. So. No, it
was great. It was very, very strange. Very like recently too. They like recently shut it down. So there's still like used stuff. I remember walking past the KFC and like I think I filmed it in like the little vlog I did where it's like the grease, the oven, like from the stove is still like on the ground. Very, very weird.
Do you plan on, other than this one, like is there any other opportunities that are gonna possibly be happening?
For Genloss?
For voice acting, sorry, I should be more.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Voice acting stuff I'm always open for. I would love, I just like doing it. Like I'm in a position where the streaming stuff is really good and I don't need voice act in like a successful way. So like, I just like doing it. So I'm always open to like lending my voice for something fun, like a project or a game that somebody has in mind. There's a few stuff that I won't say because I don't want to be ahead of myself that I will be doing or have done, but that's got to, you got to wait for that to come out. But of course, all the time. If somehow there's a role for me in Gen Loss in the new stuff that Rand's making, I would 100% be there. Same with voice acting stuff. If there was any sort of game or animation, show, cartoon, in-person acting that somebody had and wanted me for some reason to do, I would 100% do it.
Can we get a voice acting line for the pre-highlight clips on the podcast? Anything you want to say or whatever, if you can think of anything?
For like what? What do you mean?
I don't know, just give us voice act. I don't know. I know I'm not being very specific here, but I just want to hear you voice acts live on the podcast if you can. Or if I need to give you something, I probably can.
I mean, sure, you can give me something, but I mean, it's really not. I don't know.
Just redo like, I don't know, if you remember a line from John Smith, if you can do that, I guess.
Oh gosh, it's been a while.
No pressure, you don't have to. I don't want to put you on the spot. It's more so just curious.
I remember talking a little Southern and kind of deep in the throat. So maybe like, I've been trying to get back at Charles for a long time. Something like that. I can't remember the exact line.
Yeah, see, that sounds like a different person completely. Right? I actually didn't even know it was you from when I was playing the game until I think I found out about it recently.
That is kind of funny to me because it does sound very much like me to me, but you're not the first person.
I wasn't also locked in like expecting to see Sneegsnag in.
Also true, but that's kind of the fun thing for me is like I don't want to do it to where everybody's like there he is. You know what I mean? Like I mean that's still fun. That guy. But I do want to like have it stand on its own, where it's like me, like Brendan as a person, as a voice actor, and like I fit seamlessly in with the rest of them as like my own successful and talented actor, not like a guest appearance. You know what I mean? Like it's more of like the career and the job of doing so, not like the like I'm a micro celebrity, I get to voice in this. Like it's become more of like I get to do it because I like to do it and I'm
a different identity, I guess.
Yeah, it's become its own identity, which is fun for me. So it's stuff like that happens where like you play the game, you don't even know, and then while you're looking up stuff for this, I'm assuming you realize you're like, wait a minute, I didn't even realize he was in that.
Well, to be fair, I found out like a little while back, but yeah, the idea is still
right. But I'm sure somebody listening played the game and didn't even realize.
True.
So there's that. You know, it's that's fun for me. That's what I like.
You mentioned the Gen Loss series with Ranboo. You guys actually owned a duo YouTube channel, White Noise. Yeah,
of course.
The first video is literally titled "Not a Podcast." So
yeah,
glad you established that at the start. I mean, it looks very much like it'd be a podcast by the name, by the branding of it being a duo. Like it's very much podcast.
Well, it was more of the joke at it was going to be. So it kind of came about because people still do get mine and Rand's voice confused. And I don't understand how, because one, we didn't grow up in the same area of America. Our accents are different. But even then, like the level I talk at, the bass is a different bass than he talks at. And like somehow people still mix up me and them. Like I don't get it, but it's like, it was a gag for a long time. I don't even think it happens as much now, but certainly like a year or two ago, it became this funny thing of like, well, we sound the same. It's kind of like how White Noise kind of just sounds like this deep, like set level of noise. Like it's like this consistent noise level. So it kind of like created the name as a joke. And then when we were joking about the name and making it, it was like a joke as a podcast. Like we should do it as a podcast as a joke. And then we kind of like sat and stuck on making it a Let's Play instead. And people seem to really like it. I mean, people still bring it up and name us as such and all that. It's just people are busy. You know, Rand's got like a ton of their own like independent projects with Gen Loss and stuff. And it's like, I never wanted it to be a very serious thing. And I would find time to put into it if they don't have time, which, you know, sometimes they don't. Like I was never gonna push it, so it's kind of just fallen flat and isn't a thing at this point, which is a shame because it was really fun and people really like it. But once again, it's like I never wanted it to be this like serious thing of like we have to film, we have to do this. It was like we had time and we were doing it, and now time is a little different for both of us, so it's like, you know, we can't really do it as well or as often, so we don't.
I mean, it's just a fun little period that like was something different, something new, and I mean, it didn't have like you said, as much as you wanted it to. I'm glad you're not forcing it to continue, because then it just won't be as good.
That would ruin the genuine like feel that it had and still would if we were to continue it. Like it doesn't create that same enthusiasm that is fun and genuine for everybody.
Exactly. With that, then I think we've pretty much covered your entire life here. Oh my god, we've been recording for ages. I did not realize.
Oh, I don't mind.
Okay, that's good then. I'm glad. I'm happy with it anyways. I always say like I have like a new cap off of like 3 hours, but that's we still got 35 minutes if it was to reach that. Unless you have something else you wanted to bring up, if there's something I missed that you thought I was going to talk about, I'm happy to just move on to the Twitter questions.
No, I mean we can move on. I don't really have much to think about. I mean we've been jumping around, so it's like I don't know.
I mean it's not very good. The Twitter questions, however, are a little less serious. Some of them are good, some of them are interesting, but we'll be sure.
Knowing my audience, they're probably not very serious at all. So
some are decent. So the first one comes from Caleb. Can you ask him what his favorite old school RuneScape boss is?
Favorite boss? Ooh. I mean, Jad's a classic. I have a little Jad 3D printed figurine in my cabinet. Jad's just such an iconic like RuneScape boss. I guess newer ones I really like. I don't play it much right now, but I really like running the Corrupted Gauntlet. The Gauntlet's always very fun to play. Very nerve-wracking, but I guess if it's a more recent boss, that would be one.
Okay. See, these ones I don't, because they're not my questions, I don't really build on them too much, so it's kind of like rapid fire through them in a sense. The next one is from Satire. I think I've pronounced that wrong, I'm so sorry. It's SATYR. Question for Sneak. Do you think the reason you don't play Minecraft as much as you used to is because you have practically experienced and played almost every form of Minecraft? So they put in brackets that you've done modded SMPs, PvP, Minecraft events, single player, and speedrunning.
I think there's something to that. I doubt I've experienced all of it because I certainly haven't done like some of the formulas or some of the things that I could do, but there is something to that where it's like I've done a decent amount and a lot of random. This is very funny for like having played a lot of Minecraft lately on stream because of the Vault Hunters kick that I'm on, but
ignoring
there is definitely something to it where it's like I've done a decent amount of it, like in a lot of other regards, like in a bunch of different formats and a lot of different ways for sure. You might be onto something. I mean, I haven't really thought about it that way, but that is also probably true in some sense where it's like I might just be like a little tapped out of options. Like, but I do for like stuff like Vault Hunters and SDMP other stuff. Like I do come back and play it when something is interesting in terms of like it's usually the concept or the people that make me play again. Like it's when an SMP has a fun group of people or like the list of mods or the idea behind it and stuff is very exciting or very fun. Like Minecraft is such a fun little like moldable game that it can create so many fun different opportunities and types that it makes it fun to like come back every now and then. But that's probably true. I mean, I've never really thought about it that way once again, but they're probably onto something.
The next one comes from Calvin, and this is probably something we've answered on the podcast, but I'll ask anyways. What is something that you care deeply about that you haven't spoken about much publicly? I mean, you seem to be really like
spoken about publicly.
Seem to be really into the whole like about content creation and stuff like that. That was a good thought.
Yeah,
that could be an answer.
Yeah, I mean, probably stuff like that. Like the mental attitude of content creation is very important to me because I feel like it's been what's kept me sane for so long, and I feel like I have a lot of thought on it, and I don't feel like there is really a significant place to discuss it or to make sense of it besides like stuff like this where I'm asked or like on a podcast where it's relevant. Like it's hard to find even a place to speak about that publicly unless it's prompted,
Yeah.
So I guess like maybe less serious is like some like I talk about sports plenty, so maybe not necessarily that, but like I play a lot of volleyball. I played for like 2 years in high school and all 4 years in college, and I still play a lot of sand volleyball now. So that's something that I play a good amount and have fun doing still that I don't really talk about tons publicly, I guess.
That's cool. I don't know. Okay, this one, here you go, from Tack. Asks Sneak if he plans on doing songs anytime soon. Honestly, his singing voice is amazing. He sang once in Derivacat's song, Blue Moon. I haven't had a chance to listen to it. I actually saw this, but I forgot to listen. Do you plan on making music?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I like singing. It's fun. I've thought about it. It's just there's a lot of effort that comes into that sort of thing. And I feel like I've been having recently moved and having recently become a father and stuff like that. And then having to basically, because I moved, reinvent myself outside of my house and find things to do outside of my job and my house. It's like I feel like I'm already like having a lot of time scooped away figuring out stuff that I haven't really put put much thought in music recently, but I do like singing and like would 100% do more singing and if the opportunity arose or if I found time and the passion to do it in that regard, yeah.
What genre of music would you do?
I don't know. Like I said, I don't feel like I've put tons of thought into it, which is probably, problem one. But I don't know. I have no idea. I guess it would be whatever like I feel like my voice works the best within. I also like at least like doing, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's fair. Next one comes from here we go. I think we're getting into the less serious ones. This is from Cupid Once Loved. Does Mr. Sneegsnag enjoy cheese? This is fully serious, I must know.
I do. I actually do like cheese a lot.
What is your favorite cheese?
I like pepper jack cheese on like a burger, but then also like a fresh ass mozzarella off of a pizza and stuff, or like brie on a cracker. I don't know, dude. I do like cheese.
If you could only have one type of cheese for the rest of your life, would you choose one?
That's tough. I think I would logically pick mozzarella because that goes with a lot of things, especially on pizza.
Yeah. It's just an easy one to pick as well.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, this is a good one. This is something we've kind of touched on, but I didn't specifically ask. This one is from Piss Boy. What's it like being a father and also a content creator?
It's hard, man. It's been a bit difficult. There's been significant changes and adjustments that my wife and I have had to make to our schedule, especially mine as a creator, that like did not exist. Because like having to get up so much earlier and having a person that depends on you that you need to provide for and need to take care of, like not to mention also sort of split in an evenly or fair fashion with your partner, like it's tough. I mean, off by itself it's tough, and then having to adjust to something so like important and so like impactful is hard, especially when your job is so flexible and so freeing and like open-ended, and then you place something so not disruptive in a negative way or a way that I hate, don't get me wrong, but it's a disruptive thing in the sense of like my daughter completely halts this like open-endedness and freedom of the job because she has to sleep by a certain point. She wakes up at a certain point, and I have to get up at a certain point now. Like I can't sleep too long. I get up earlier than I used to. I can't sleep in half the time. She has to be in bed at a certain point. Otherwise it's not good for her. We have to make sure she's fed and clean and not in danger, stuff like that. Like there's so much more to my life now that wouldn't have happened without her. And I'm extremely happy for that. I feel like I've grown significantly as a person since becoming a father, and it's been nothing but a positive experience at the end of the day. But it is a bit difficult. It definitely makes a lot of things change in terms of this job. I don't feel like it's for a lot of creators could handle it as well. I think a lot of creators love the luxury of choice and total freedom, and having something like a child thrown into the mix that totally creates a much bigger dependency that makes your schedule a bit tighter. I don't think a lot of creators would really actually prefer it, let alone enjoy it as much as I have.
Also, when like she gets older, she's gonna want to go places, or she's gonna be at a point where she's gonna want to leave the house and stuff, and obviously you're gonna want to be there as well for that. So
right.
I mean, I don't know. I dedicate a lot of time to the podcast, mainly my free time because I have to work. But I've realized that like with my job, it's set like the earliest I can start is 7, the latest I can finish is 5:30. But with content creation, like especially in your case, there could be like a last minute email like, oh, here, come to this event, and it's like crap, like I have a child to care about. You know, and of course you have your partner as well, but you still have to, like you said there, take everything into consideration, and you don't want to miss anything either by being away from home.
It's much harder. Yeah, well, and we've had to make some choices and some changes. Like I moved from my hometown to be somewhere like to move to Northwest Arkansas to be near my wife's family because they are so supportive and so present and willing to help that it's become super useful. You know, we did an event on a cruise ship, and my wife went with me on a cruise for a week. That would have been much harder to not only bring my daughter on, who wouldn't have remembered it, just like complicated the process, but we wouldn't have been able to not go with her had we not been here, because she spent the week with her grandparents who she loves. And it's like having my family so close and so willing to help has made it so much easier to figure out those complications that you can't really plan for until they're happening. And so it's been very important for me and my wife to have our family so close and so willing, especially for those situations.
The next one from such a nice, wholesome kind of talk there to Ketchup's question. Are the pregnant accusations real?
The accusations?
And I see part of me thinks they're talking about you, but then
there is a bit, my chat likes like the pregnant man emoji because the TTS I use says pregnant man very funny if they type it in a certain way. Maybe so it could be a play on that, which is funny, but also maybe there's people going around thinking that pregnant again, but we are not. Okay. As of now, so.
I hope it's a funny pregnant man.
I'm sure it's the bit, not like that, but yeah.
But just in case,
I guess. Just to answer it both ways, I guess.
This is from. We'll make this the final one because the other ones are a little too weird for an InsideMC podcast. This one is from Haunted Dragon 20. I say the other one's a little too weird. I'm about to ask.
That's a very old sub. That guy's they've been around for a while.
Well, they're about to ask a question that's from a very long time ago.
Well, there you go.
Would he rather every time he went pee Steam or pee an Icicle? So the reply to this gives me an indication that in all capitals, I remember that. So I'm assuming this is a talk that you had on stream a little while back.
This was the debate. Yeah, it was a debate of whether or not you'd want to piss out hot steam or like a really long icicle. Oh. And I can't remember.
What would you prefer?
It was weirdly enough a very contentious topic. I don't remember what I answered now, funny enough.
I mean, both aren't ideal. Like, obviously, it depends on how hot the steam is, but like an icicle would just hurt.
Yeah, I can't remember what I put. I don't know.
I feel like steam would be better from like a base point, but then there's also so much to think about with this. If you're not going
my answer to them is to shut up.
Fair enough. No, that's good. I like that. Deserved as well for being a long time sub. So you get away with it. Well, with that then, that sadly brings the end of this week's InsideMC. This is the longest podcast I've done in a while, and it's going to be great to edit an over 2 hour, 40-minute one. But I've really enjoyed this chat. Thank you.
Yeah, dude, it's been an absolute honor. I hope it is received well. I hope people get something out of it, at least in one way or another. So happy to share my thoughts, and it's fun that I get to be, like, I guess, important enough to be asked things.
Before I do the outro here, though, I always like to give this opportunity for anyone who doesn't know who you are, for you to promote yourself. So where can people find you on any platform?
My name is just Sneegsnag, SNEEGSNAG, and I am on pretty much anything you can think of with that name. Talking about that uniqueness of the name from a couple of hours, like an hour or so ago, like it's allowed me to just like have the name. So it's on TikTok, I'm on YouTube, on Twitch, on Instagram, all that name. You don't have to search anything else. It's just
it'll be in the title.
That's it.
Just the name in the title. Search that everywhere.
Yep.
There you go. Well, with that being said, then Sneeg, thank you so much for giving me your time today. This has been amazing.
Of course. Yeah, it was an absolute pleasure.
I'm honored also, I must say. That being said, this has been InsideMC. Thank you all for listening. Stay safe. Don't eat too much bread. Peaces.